Hokage I can only draw S-rank rewards. Chapter 281-300. Chapter 281 Guild Wars Garp. Wu tilde. After more than 10 seconds, Lei Luo slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. At this time, when he opened his eyes, the flickering light in his eyes announced that he had reached his final form. However, it didn't end there. The 8 inner gates, open. With a loud snort coming out of Lei Luo's mouth, a light flashed between his eyebrows, and then the breath that had already climbed to the top actually broke through again. A terrifying aura erupted from Lei Luo's body and shot straight into the sky, but even so, there was still a peculiar force that kept hitting the acupuncture points in his body. Isn't it over yet? Feeling the change of Lei Luo, Kaku's fighting spirit that had not been ignited for a long time was also ignited at this moment. Open the door, the body door, the life door, the injury door, the do door, the jing door. Lei Luo opened 6 doors in a row, and his body was surrounded by thick green light. Even if he stood still at the moment, he gave people the kind of power that could shake the 9 bulls with just a few gestures. Launch armament haki. Before Lei Luo could act, Garp's body instinctively completed armament haki. In the next moment, Lei Luo and Garp made a very tacit movement. The speed was so fast that the naked eye couldn't see it clearly. They could only judge their position based on the sonic boom that sounded from time to time. Boom. The 2 of them who suddenly appeared, were slamming their fists against each other, but the strange thing was that the collision after raising their breath to the peak was not as destructive as before. And this is just because the 2 of them have a very deep level of power control and precision. Although every move is simple, there is no useless waste. Taking advantage of Lei Luo's neutral, Garp turned his fist into claws, his hands suddenly clasped Lei Luo's wrist and elbow, and then his waist suddenly exerted force, throwing Lei Luo into the air. As we all know, during a battle, the most taboo is to be in the air, because after the feet are off the ground, people can't burst out with all their strength, and their movements will be greatly restricted. Seeing such a good opportunity, Garp stomped on the ground with his left foot, and he held the rubble as small as a human head, wrapped it in armament haki, and threw it towards Lei Luo. At this moment, Sengoku jumped up, because he knew that Garp's armament haki was definitely not something a young man could bear, even if he had the power to destroy the kingdom of Jamal by one person. However, at that moment, Sengoku found that Lei Luo was not panicking at all, but seemed to have a smile on the corner of his mouth. Morning Peacock. Quote. Lei Luo's light speed punches instantly ignited the air and turned into fireballs, setting them off, as beautiful as a peacock with an open screen. In the air, the fireball collided with the pitch-black stones rapidly. The dust in the sky completely obscured Lei Luo's figure. According to the sound of fists in the air, it could be judged that Lei Luo and Garp were evenly matched. It's enough to be able to do this, but it's a pity. Sengoku smiled helplessly. When he saw Garp's figure disappearing from the spot, he already knew the final outcome. Who is Garp? A navy chasing the famous big pirates who fled everywhere, a navy who only used a punch to hit a 500 million bounty level green pepper to a navy who has been incognito for several years, a navy called a hero. He is invincible. Symbol of. It's over. Akainu sat back on the office chair, and Kizaru closed his eyes. They never imagined that Garp would lose to Lei Luo, even if it was a draw. The 8 inner gates, open. Lei Luo's voice came again, and the dust in the sky was instantly blown away by the momentum he erupted at the moment, and the entire naval headquarters was constantly shaking due to this sudden impact. How can it be? The people who suddenly burst out looked at the grinning young man whose whole body was wrapped in blue airwaves and all his hair was upside down in the air, with extreme shock in his eyes. Lei Luo actually took Garp's full blow. Boy, it's not bad. Even Sakazuki and the others may not be able to take the punch from the old man under such circumstances. Lieutenant General Garp, boy, I can't maintain this state for too long, so let's make a final blow. Facing Garp's generous praise, Lei Luo slowly closed his fist and fell to the ground with a swoosh. Final blow. Garp smiled, and his fighting spirit became more and more high. Since this form can't last for too long, let's do the last blow. It's called Day Tiger. Lei Luo's breaths and breaths, the breath all over his body rushed towards his right fist at a high speed, and even before he made a move, he could already feel the mighty power like destroying the sky and destroying the earth. Looking at Lei Luo's slow closing of his fist, Garp nodded, and raised his right fist as well, and the dark armament hockey on it became more and more intense. Since he recognized that Lei Luo's last move was physical art, Garp naturally wouldn't choose to dodge. 7 Gates Profound Truth Day Tiger. Along with Lei Luo's straight punch, with him as the center, all the air in the surrounding tens of meters was evacuated by that punch, and there was a faint roar of a tiger that shook the world. Yeehoo, that's a good name. Watching the giant white tiger that gradually appeared in the air and pounced on him, Garp laughed, just a very simple punch, without any bells and whistles. Damn it, Sakazuki, Pulsalino, Fujitora, and you, Doflamingo, hurry up. Sengoku, who had already incarnated in the form of a giant Buddha, roared at the surroundings. He did not expect that the sparring between Lei Luo and Garp would actually develop to such a level that it was enough to overwhelm the Navy headquarters. At that moment, the white tiger, the black fist, the Buddha's palm, the lava, the light bullet, and the aura of the king collided. The thunder continued, the sky and the earth changed color, the terrifying lingering power spread, the naval headquarters was crumbling, and on the sea surface within a few kilometers around it, the corpses of marine creatures continued to emerge, even the sea kings. Survive. Cap, you're fucking insane. As time passed, this earth-shattering scene gradually subsided, and only Sengoku's angry voice resounded through the sky. In the distance, with the help of his fruit ability, Doflamingo caught the clouds and kept moving away in the air. He looked back at the large hole in the sky behind him that had not healed for a long time, and then looked at the 5 people below, with a cold sweat on his forehead. Sliding slowly. 2 monsters that aren't human, or I slipped early, I'm afraid I'd at least be crippled just now. Inhuman monsters, this is the only word in Doflamingo's mind that can be used to describe the horror of Lei Luo and Garp. Chapter 282-Mission, Admiral. In the square of the Navy headquarters, Lei Luo, who was like a water man, felt that he was almost collapsed. At this moment, only the backs of Akainu and Kizaru appeared in front of him. As for Sengoku, he was standing between Lei Luo and Garp in the form of a big Buddha. Is the difference so big? Lei Luo struggled to squeeze out a self-deprecating smile. However, if it weren't for the restriction of this world's rules, it was impossible to condense chakra and use ninjutsu. No matter how strong Garp is, he will never be his opponent. Apparently, Akainu and Kizaru were positioned to help themselves defend against Garp's attack, while Sengoku threw the power of the 2 into the air to avoid unnecessary destruction and death. Hey boy, what was that blue gas around you just now? Garp still had his arms crossed and asked Lei Luo. Sweat, a trick that consumes a lot of water in the body in exchange for strength. Seeing that Garp was still unscathed, Lei Luo felt that he couldn't even laugh. Then I have time to teach this old man. Okay. The last 2 words blurted out, Lei Luo fell to the ground and fell into a faint. Sakazuki, it seems that Lieutenant General Garp is not only not less impressive, but even better. You must remember not to mention Ace in front of his old man in the future. Kizaru, who felt like his arms were about to break, didn't forget to make fun of Akainu. It's just a pity that, in the face of Kizaru's ridicule, Akainu snorted coldly and turned away. I've been opened up again. It seems that I have to practice hard. Knowing that Akainu didn't suffer any injuries, Kizaru laughed, turned into a golden light and went away, leaving only Sengoku, who sighed alone. Cap, do you have to stand even if you are unconscious? Sengoku, who had returned to his normal form, sighed as he looked at Garp with a cheerful smile. Since Roger was executed, The forces on the sea have gradually stabilized, and this guy has not had a happy battle for a long time. It seems that before Kirby inherits the title of naval hero, this kid will inherit the title of your strongest navy. Sengoku, dragging Lei Luo and Carp, looked at the sunset that had completely set in the distance, and the rising moon, with a strong expectation in his eyes. The next day. Balloon, wake up, do you remember how the two of us fell asleep at the port? When the fishing rod moved, Kirby, who was awakened by it, looked at the sea that had been stained with blood in front of Yuhi, and kept pushing his friends beside him. Huh, where did the smell of blood and fish come from? It's so disgusting. I'm a jerk, what's going on? After seeing the scene in front of him, Bailu Mabe, who was half asleep and half awake, suddenly shuddered, and his brain was instantly awake. No matter how hard the two of them remembered what happened last night, the last memory stayed with a loud noise, and then they didn't know anything. Could it be that a powerful enemy is attacking, or the vicious criminals on the 6th floor of the underwater prison have escaped? Facing Belameb's conjecture, Kirby shook his head, because in his memory, he vaguely remembered that the loud noise seemed to be mixed with a very familiar aura. The marshal's office at this time. Akainu, who had not slept all night, stared at the wretched figure sneaking into the office in front of him, without saying a word. Ouch, Lord Marshal didn't go back to rest. The yellow monkey who turned around was really startled. What's the matter? Say it directly, don't waste the old man's time. Facing Akainu's icy attitude, Kizaru hesitated for a moment, then squeezed out a slightly embarrassed smile, took out a piece of paper from his pocket and put it in front of Akainu, and it turned into a light and shadow that disappeared. Without a trace. I, Admiral Porosalino of the Navy, are temporarily unable to use due to the soreness of his arms due to a work-related injury last night, and hereby apply for a leave of absence to Master Marshal, hoping for approval. Looking at the content on the piece of paper, Akainu's face sank, and the request for leave was burned to ashes by lava in an instant. Fujitora, bring Porosalino to my office. After putting down the phone bug, Akainu waited silently for Fujitora's arrival. At the same time. Water. I want water. The awakened Lei Luo murmured. Because of the shock of the 7th of the 8 inner gates, Lei Luo's body water evaporated seriously. If this happened to ordinary people, he would have died long ago. Coincidentally, someone just handed him a large bucket of water. Boy, you're finally awake. Lieutenant General Carp. Sitting up slowly, Lei Luo, who still felt extremely aching all over his body, saw Garp sitting in front of him alive and well at a glance. It was also after a war. It doesn't matter if this old man woke up earlier than him, why does he still seem to have nothing to do? At this moment, Lei Luo couldn't help shouting pervert for the setting of the original book in Carp. Boy, what's your trick called? Bahia? No, Dunjia. It's not right either. The 8 inner gates. Yes, as the saying goes, it is better to choose the day than to hit the sun. Today you teach this old man. Facing Carp's urging, Lei Luo really felt that people were more popular than others. The current self has not fully recovered, but Carp is completely nothing. Nonsense. Garp, Lei Luo hasn't passed the weak period yet. Besides, when he is healed, he will have to fight for new recruits. How can he teach you? Sengoku, who pushed in the door, gave Garp a blank look. Battle of the Recruits. What is that? For Lei Luo, a Navy novice, Sengoku is happy to explain it to him. The Battle of Recruits is the solution that the government came up with for the post-conscription job. Both the new Navy and the old ones who joined the conscription can participate in this war. To put it simply, the world government has decided to issue military positions based on strength. That is to say, only those with sufficient strength can hope to be qualified for higher positions, and the strongest person can directly become a military officer. General. Hasn't Marshal Akainu discussed it with me? Will I be the general next week? After hearing Sengoku's introduction, Lei Luo's already not so beautiful mood became even less beautiful. Everything was going well at first, but when I woke up, everything changed. It was like the duck that reached its mouth suddenly came to life, spread its wings and flew away, and by the way, drank a pot of soup. This is a temporary announcement issued by the world government this morning. We can't do anything about it. Besides, with your strength, no one should be able to shake your footsteps. Sengoku saw Lei Luo's dissatisfaction at a glance, and hurriedly said something to comfort him. Yes, your kid can be on par with the old man, who will be your opponents among those recruits. Carp agreed. Lei Luo, who heard the words of the two, did not reply, because at this moment in his mind, the system's task prompt sound suddenly remembered. Task trigger, Admiral. Chapter 283_Spike. This competition will be played in pairs. According to the rules set forth by Akainu, the way of attacking and defending in this competition, there are a total of 6 arenas, the period is 1 day, and the 6 people who stand on the arena at the end are the winners and can obtain the status of Vice Admiral. The rest of the people are converted based on the situation of points, and a point is added for winning a game, and then the military rank is determined according to the number of points. In addition, the only thing you need to pay attention to is that you must not kill your companions, otherwise you will be stripped of your military posts and sent to the underwater prison. Battle of the Recruits, start now. With Akainu's order, the atmosphere instantly became active, and everyone locked their eyes on the 10 empty arenas. This seemingly simple rule hides disparity. If a strong man, after a whole day of fighting, will eventually experience a decline in combat effectiveness due to mental fatigue, that is the opportunity to pull him down. Similarly, if a few people agreed to use the way of wheel battle to consume the physical strength of the defending party, it is not a bad idea, but it is unknown who will enjoy the final result. Just when everyone was hesitating whether they should step forward to occupy the ring at this moment, a tall figure dragged a blind man holding a long knife, slowly walked out of the crowd, and each boarded one side of the ring. Even Green Bull and Fujitora were asked to participate in this competition. Looking at the blind man standing quietly in the center of the ring, and the tall figure sleeping on his back, most people helplessly turned their eyes to the remaining 4 rings. Is it not a waste of effort to challenge a strong man who already has the power of a general? Did Lei Luo and Lei Ju also choose to occupy the ring at this time? As the 2 most dazzling new stars who came back from this wave of conscription, Lei Luo and Lei Ju's actions naturally attracted everyone's attention. It seems that they were driven by the 4, and the recruits who were eager to try at the bottom of the ring finally no longer hesitated and rushed to the rest of the ring, or challenge the first 4. As an existence that no one dares to challenge easily, Lei Luo completely focused his attention on the arena where Lei Ju was. Captain Dusky, challenge. Looking at Dasky who walked into the next ring, wearing pink-rimmed glasses, a faint smile appeared on Lei Luo's face. Dasky is Smog's direct subordinate. Although she is only a major, her strength is generally good, but compared to Reiju, she is still a lot worse. By the way, why haven't you seen Smokey recently? Lei Luo, who was still guessing where Smoker went, also heard the challenger's voice. The current Navy Colonel Kirby, challenge Mr. Lei Luo. Lei Luo turned his head and quietly looked at the tall and straight teenager who appeared in front of him. Kirby, Luffy's friend and Garp's apprentice, once created a few seconds that were enough to change history in the Top War. You are not my opponent. Perhaps the future Kirby will become a naval hero comparable to Garp, but now he is a rookie at best, and he may not even be able to make a move under the real powerhouse. Facing Lei Luo's contempt, Kebi laughed at himself. Shave. I saw Kebi suddenly stomped on the ground with both legs, and appeared in front of Lei Luo like a ghost. Hit. With the real touch coming from his fingertips, Kirby was overjoyed, even if the attack hit was only because of his sudden attack. According to Carp's description, Lei Luo's strength is far from being comparable to any admiral in the Navy, and now, this is the only chance for Kirby to understand the gap between himself and the admiral. Yes, but unfortunately you are still too weak. Lei Luo's voice came from the edge of the ring, and Kebi looked up, only to see that Lei Luo in front of him instantly turned into a golden light and disappeared. Weak. It is true that Kirby has always been weak, but he has never given up trying to become stronger. Mr. Lei Luo, this is a 6-style mix technique that I developed myself. I hope it can arouse your fighting spirit a little bit. After slightly adjusting his mentality, Kebi jumped up in place and continued to climb in the air with the help of the ability of the moon step. What is this kid doing? Lei Luo never cared about any of Kebi's actions, just as an elephant never cared about a weak ant slamming into him desperately. Soon, Kebi, who had reached the critical point, flicked his waist, and the whole person stood upside down on top of Lei Luo. With the appearance of his right finger on the ground, he quickly fell. Is it a combination of iron blocks and finger guns? Lei Luo could see what the 6-style mixing technique in Kebi's mouth was, just like Kebi's current move. First use the moon step to raise yourself to the commanding heights, then use the paper painting to change your own movements, and finally, while condensing the finger spear, cast iron blocks all over the body. The strength of the acceleration brought about by the acceleration of gravity, the sturdiness of the iron block sacrificed for its own mobility, and the destructive power of the finger gun are perfectly integrated at this moment. The idea of this trick is really good. However, in the face of Kebi's offensive, Lei Luo just stood there quietly. This move of Kebi combines strength and defense, and it may have miraculous effects against ordinary people, but in front of Lei Luo, who has the speed of light, it is like a snail crawling, extremely slow. The next moment, Lei Luo turned sideways and his eyes twitched slightly, and the aura of the king who stood above everyone burst out. It was just a face-to-face, and Kebi lost consciousness. It is indeed a good thing to have a heart that is not afraid of strong enemies, but no matter how strong the heart is, it can never make up for the hard gap in strength. This is Lei Luo's first lesson for Kirby. My god, Major Kirby is already considered an upper-level existence among the younger generation, but he was instantly killed by Lei Luo with one look. Is this the strength of a real strong man? That's Conqueror's Haki. Lei Luo ignored the noise of the crowd and just focused on the person who recognized Conqueror's Haki. It was a man with a more refined appearance, but a muscular body. Not only that, but Lei Luo could feel the same aura from him. The breath of the Overlord. It seems that this conscription has really found a lot of powerful beings. Lei Luo said calmly. Conqueror's Haki is the ability that a person is born with, and it is the courage that cannot be cultivated. Anyone who awakens Conqueror's Haki can basically occupy a place in this sea in the future as long as he does not die. Chapter 284 _ Superhuman Air Fruit. Hey, how many tricks have you had? Seeing that Dusky was defeated at the speed of light in Lei Zhou's hands, the bored Lei Luo suddenly spoke to the crowd below the ring. Who is he talking to? It shouldn't be me. How can anyone with my strength like me? It can't be you. At this moment, the young boy among the recruits who was previously concerned by Lei Luo slowly walked out of the crowd, made a gentle jump, and appeared on the ring. That's gorgeous. With just one glance, the identity of the young man was revealed in one sentence. To say that this Gedger is also a newcomer who has been paid attention to by the high-level navy. In the reason test a few days ago, Gedges, who punched up to 4,200 points, shocked all four. The Dao strength value is above 4,000. Although it is not as pervert as Lei Luo, it is also an extremely terrifying number. Because in the Navy's records, people with a Dao value above 4,000 have basically become generals. In other words, Gedgers is a potential stock that is expected to become a general in the future. You are very strong. I am not your opponent, not in every way. However, what surprised everyone was that the first sentence of Gedges after entering the ring was to directly admit the strength of Lei Luo. Cowardice without fighting is a big taboo in the military. However, I will never be killed instantly by you. Gedges' voice sounded again. I will never be killed by you in seconds. Isn't this still another way to say that Lei Luo is stronger? Since you feel that you are inferior to the other party, why should you step into the ring? Not only the recruits watching from the arena, even Lei Luo couldn't guess what Gedges was really thinking. Hiss. Suddenly, Gedges took a deep breath, not even his chest bulging. Ha! Under everyone's attention, Gedges glared angrily, squirting out all the air that had been sucked into his stomach earlier. What kind of power is this? Looking at the air bombs that had condensed into substance and rushed towards him, Lei Luo's heart also showed a hint of confusion. This kind of ability, even in the original comics, has never appeared. Lei Luo, who had just dodged the blow in a blink of an eye, was not able to stand up yet, and several air bombs followed. Perhaps Lei Luo, who was dodging, didn't notice it. In the eyes of the audience below the ring, these air bombs didn't seem to be for attacking, but more like paving the way for the next move. Why are these air bombs so weak? Lei Luo frowned slightly. He could feel that Gedger's attack was nothing more than a paper tiger on the surface, and at best it could work against ordinary people. However, those air bombs lingered in the air for a long time and never disappeared, which caught Lei Luo's attention. If it's to pave the way for the next move, then the preparation time is too long. In an instant, Lei Luo's figure turned into a golden light and appeared behind Gedges, and the voice of great disappointment sounded. However, at the next moment, Lei Luo's complexion suddenly changed, and he actually chose to give up the chance to shoot. What kind of power is this? Lei Luo's voice. At the moment he just appeared behind Gedges, he could clearly feel that there was no more oxygen in the circle centered on Gedges, and the creatures would enter, and they would suffocate and die soon. Suddenly thinking of something, Lei Luo raised his hand. The golden light from his palm was concentrated, and the terrifying high temperature penetrated into the air bomb that was stagnant in the air. Boom! The originally calm air bomb exploded the moment Lei Luo touched it, and the sky filled with fire was like a deadly poisonous snake, madly attacking Lei Luo. Sure enough, it's oxygen. After some testing by himself, Lei Luo verified his idea, that is, these air bombs are more like a sealed jar, and what is hidden in it is the oxygen that all things depend on to survive. Snapped. A snap of fingers suddenly sounded. Boom boom boom. Deafening explosions sounded one after another. The entire ring was instantly engulfed by flames, and the terrifying high temperature turned into a demon, trying to burn everything in front of him. Looking at the arena that had turned into a volcano in front of them, everyone subconsciously swallowed a sigh of relief. Lei Luo, is he dead or alive now? Is this the kid you're talking about? Not bad for fruit development. A Kainu on the high platform turned and asked Lieutenant General Mole behind him. It's a pity that the flames still can't keep up with the pace of light. Lieutenant General Mole, who smiled helplessly, slowly raised his head and looked at Lei Luo, who had already appeared in the sky at some point in time. Over the frenzied burning arena, Lei Luo, whose shirt on his right arm was slightly charred, looked down at Gedges, who was standing in a vacuum and was not eroded by the flames, with a look of approval on his face. With the appearance of ferocious, in essence, no destructive air bombs as a cover, it has the effect of deterring the enemy. After the enemy found out that something was wrong, he wanted to launch an attack on Gedger's body, but found that there was a vacuum around him, which deepened the panic in the enemy's heart. For an unknown thing, human nature is to panic and stay away, and this is the basis of Gedge's third step. Among the air bombs that were arranged in advance, he deliberately left a safe place, that is, the center of all the air bombs. Once the enemy enters the safe zone, then it is the turtle in the urn. At that time, Gorgeous only needs to exert a little force to detonate all the air bombs, and then everything will die in the explosion. Sure enough, it still can't cause any substantial harm to you. After the flames gradually dissipated, Gedges raised his head, and the golden light that rushed into the air at the moment of the explosion did not escape his eyes at all. Is this the power of the devil fruit? Lei Luo, who slowly landed, didn't pay much attention to the shocked gazes outside the ring, and asked directly to Gedges. Well, Superman is an air fruit. Air fruit. Then you should be able to control more than oxygen, right? The flame just now was due to oxygen, and the explosion was due to hydrogen. Oh, by the way, you know, after inhaling too much carbon dioxide, people will be in a trance in light, fainting or even death in serious cases. Looking at Gedgers with a more sly smile on his face in front of him, Leiluo faintly found that there seemed to be something wrong with his mental state. The burning of the fire produces a lot of carbon dioxide. Suddenly realizing that he was in a rich carbon dioxide environment at the moment, Leiluo quickly held his breath, but when he looked at Gedges again, what appeared in front of him was an ink-like fist. Chapter 285 Armament Hockey. Leiluo recognized the arrogance of this person who was specially used to restrain the natural devil fruit ability at a glance. As for the natural devil fruit, only armament hockey can damage it. But even so, his unresponsive brain due to inhaling a lot of carbon dioxide did not make a timely evasion judgment. PFF'd. Like a kite with a broken string, Leiluo's figure flew to the edge of the ring, and a mouthful of blood spurted out instantly. Hee, Gedges is a fighting genius. With a thoughtful mind and superhuman strength, it seems that Leiluo is going to suffer a lot now. Lieutenant General Mole has absolute confidence in the young powerhouse he recruited. Even if he can't win, he will definitely lose. After all, this is Gedges who defeated himself. In the ring, Leiluo, who had just got up, just wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth, and before he could do anything else, he felt a huge force attacking him again, buckling his whole body to the ground again. Boom! In the muffled sound, cracks spread on the ring, dust covered the sky, and only a faint picture could be seen of a person being severely pressed to the ground and ravaged. Could it be that Leiluo is going to lose? At this moment, the few words Gedges said when he first entered the ring appeared in everyone's mind. It turned out that he was being humble. Maybe Leiluo underestimated the enemy, or maybe Gedges' ability was too weird, but in the defensive competition, people would only praise the winner and never ask the reason of the loser. Gedges lost. Akainu's voice suddenly sounded, making Lieutenant General Mole somewhat unhappy. He knew that Akainu valued Leiluo very much, but in this situation, Leiluo had lost the possibility of a comeback no matter what. With just a little flick, Leiluo will be thrown out of the ring by Gedges and lose the qualification to defend. And now the fact, it is true, Leiluo has been thrown out of the ring. Clap clap clap. Suddenly, there was a burst of applause in the air, and everyone who looked at Sunshung was horrified. Why is there a Leiluo in the air? If that's the case, then who is the one outside the ring? Your brain and brute force are really worthy of this face and figure. Leiluo in the air smiled slightly, but he didn't do anything, just a slight smile, because at this time Gedges had already jumped off the ring. After losing, Gedges knew very well that he had lost, because Leiluo, who had been fighting with him, had disappeared with a bang at this moment. It's just a shadow clone. Everything just now was developed according to the plan made by Gedges. He thought it was foolproof, but he didn't know that Leiluo would still do this trick. Now that all the trump cards have been exposed, it is only a clone that defeated the opponent, and then there is naturally no reason to continue fighting. On the high platform, Lieutenant General Mole was also surprised. Even as an outsider, he didn't even notice when Leiluo changed into a clone. Oh, take a closer look. The Leiluo you saw just now is not as high as it is now, and it's not at this position. If Kayabu said that, Lieutenant General Mole was awakened at once. Hello, what's your name? Leiluo, who slowly descended from the ring, asked the figure who had disappeared into the crowd. However, no one responded to him, but the air in front of him was separated according to the type, and it became the three words of Gedges. Gedges. Leiluo grinned wickedly, and it seemed that he already had a candidate for his team in the future. It seems that Gedges' defeat had an effect. Now an hour has passed, and the ring where Leiluo is standing is deserted, far less lively than the ring where Leiluo is next door. Fujitora and Midori are known to have general-level strength, so no fools will challenge them. As for Lei Luo, in the eyes of the recruits, he was already classified as a general, and naturally no one challenged him. In contrast, although Leiju has achieved an unbeaten record of more than 10 consecutive victories, her strength is relatively weak. In addition, as a woman, her physical strength is still weaker than that of a man, and the burden of successive battles has turned into fatigue and appeared on her face, making her the target of most people. Meanwhile, Cake Island. According to the information returned by the spies, the Navy is engaged in a battle of recruits. If there is no accident, Lei Luo's lowest position will be Lieutenant General. Go down. In a house made of candy, Perospero and Katakuri both frowned and remained silent. Because of the lack of high-level combat power, the world government ordered a new recruit war, which led to the promotion of high-level officials, rather than a step-by-step promotion. If Lei Luo was just an ordinary third-class soldier, or a major, even if he was killed by the pirates, he would not have attracted the attention of the Navy. However, if Lei Luo passed the battle of recruits and reached the rank of Lieutenant General, everything would be different. The death of the Lieutenant General will directly lead to the final battle between the Navy and the BIGMOM pirates. Mom has already issued a killing order for Lei Luo, but now the situation. What should I do now? Perospero sighed deeply, with an indescribable sadness in his tone. With the temper of the ant, she is completely arrogant and does not put the Navy in her eyes. Even if Lei Luo holds the important position of the naval marshal, the kill order will never be withdrawn. But at the moment, compared to the 100 Beasts pirates and Yuhifa pirates, the situation of BIGMOM pirates is getting weaker and weaker. It is absolutely impossible to make too many losses in order to obliterate Lei Luo alone. Wait a minute, I seem to see that in a month's time, there will be several powerful young pirates in the Chambord Islands, and maybe their appearance can change the situation. It's just a group of young people, what else can they be used for? Perospero doesn't care about the future foreseen by Katakuri. He doesn't think that the new pirate has the strength to fight against the Navy. Even if they join forces, there is absolutely no chance. Furthermore, in Snag's description by Lei Luo, the combat power is definitely not under the generals, and how much trouble can be caused by only a few calves born. Among those young men, there was a boy in a straw hat who seemed to be called the Fifth Emperor of the Sea by the Navy. What did you say? The Fifth Emperor? Wait a minute, can we use a trick to kill someone with a knife? The shock on Perospero's face was quickly replaced by a touch of treacherousness. The Navy, which has always advocated justice, was killed by the Fifth Emperor who represented the evil of the new generation. This seems to be a good plan. Chapter 286-Semifinal. As the battle of recruits gradually came to an end, the next round of decisive battles began between the remaining 6 finalists. Lei Luo vs. Gedgers. Fujitora vs. Reiku. Green Bull vs. Yaks. Obviously, Akainu's group deliberately avoided the battle between Lei Luo, Fujitora and Green Bull. I abstain. Gedges didn't hesitate because he knew that even if he tried his best to fight against Lei Luo, the final result would only be defeat. I also abstain. Me too. Likewise, Reiju and Yaks had a clear understanding of their own strengths. As a result, only 3 people remained in the final semifinals. One by one. Akainu pondered slightly. He didn't know how to formulate the schedule, but by chance, he saw Kizaru who was about to clock in and get off work. Stop, Pelusalino. The thick male voice suddenly came from behind, which sounded like a devil's call in the ears of Kizaru. If he turned around at this time, it would definitely be nothing good. Master Marshal, it's already off work now. There shouldn't be anything to work overtime, right? The reluctant Kizaru turned around, revealing his signature slightly wretched smile. However, Akainu ignored him, and instead announced to everyone below, tomorrow, on Ice and Fire Island, in the semi-finals, Lei Luo will play against Kizaru, and Fujitora will play against Green Bull. Akainu's words fell, and the atmosphere of the naval headquarters was instantly pushed to a climax. This is a battle between 4 naval supreme powers. Being able to witness such a great battle between the powerhouses is bound to yield a lot, but the location of the semifinals is an extremely dangerous area, which can't help but discourage most people. Ice and Fire Island was originally just a little-known abandoned island that didn't even have a name. However, because Akainu and Aokiji fought for the position of marshal on the island for 10 days and 10 nights, the originally deserted environment was artificially turned into a harsh area of half lava and half ice. Surviving on the island is extremely difficult. It is precisely for this reason that the Ice and Fire Island where Wanjing has disappeared will be the best occasion for the semifinals, a ring where the 4 Lei Luo can be allowed to exert their power without any scruples. Can I abstain? Yes, in exchange for all your vacation time. His last struggle was rejected so decisively. Kizaru accepted the order helplessly on the surface, but he was secretly scolding Akainu in his heart. The moon rises, and the night falls. First of all, congratulations to Lei Ju for becoming a lieutenant general, and secondly, congratulations to Lei Luo who is about to become a general. Tina, who was holding her dream, was in a good mood. Long before the two of them returned, Lei Luo had already left the stage and cooked a table of sumptuous dark dishes. According to the internal information Tina inquired, the so-called semifinals are just a cover for Akainu. His real purpose is to take this opportunity to make things difficult for the daily lazy Kizaru. After all, whether it is Fujitora, Green Bull, or Lei Luo, they are all terrifying beings with general-level combat power. What do you mean? Fujitora and Green Bull may just be walking on the set on Ice and Fire Island. Probably neither of them will pass, to be precise. The answer given by Tina made Lei Luo speechless. Akainu wants to make things difficult for Kyabu, so why is he looking for me? I think it's because you're the only one who can keep up with the speed of Admiral Kizaru. Indeed, the yellow monkey with the speed of light can be said to be an undefeated existence. Even if it is defeated, with the advantage of speed, there will never be a situation of defeat. Since he wants to find trouble with Huang Yuan, Lei Luo is naturally the best choice. You two eat, I'm going back to work out tomorrow's battle plan. To fight against the yellow monkey, to formulate a combat plan. This is absolutely impossible. Maybe when fighting Fujitora and Green Bull, Lei Luo would also think about a battle plan because the comics did not show the full strength of the two, but if the opponent is Kyabu, he just needs to adapt accordingly. As for why Lei Luo said this, it was because he saw that Dream just ate a small bite of Tina's carefully crafted dark food, but he rolled his eyes and stuck his head on the ground. Lei Luo, don't leave yet, come and see what happened to the dream. Just as Lei Luo was about to walk out of the second daughter's room, Tina's voice suddenly sounded. Hey sister, are you really ignorant or pretending to be stupid? Isn't the half-dead appearance of the dream because of the dishes cooked by your superb cooking skills? Although he thought so in his heart, Lei Luo didn't dare to say it out, so he had no choice but to walk to Dream's side and activate the light therapy. After more than 10 seconds, Dream coughed, and a black solid the size of a wrench flew out of his mouth, almost rubbing against Lei Luo's face, and finally embedded in the wall. Good guy, this ghost dish is so pervert. Looking at the scene in front of him, Lei Luo's idea of never moving his chopsticks became more firm. Oh, yes, Reiju, this devil fruit is for you. After thinking about it for a long time, Lei Luo, who really had no excuse to delay time, had no choice but to take out the devil fruit that he accidentally obtained in Victor's weapons factory. This is a papaya-like fruit with fine lines all over its body. Looking at it, it seems like the ethereal wind. Lei Ju didn't show anything, and took the devil fruit directly from Lei Luo's hands. Reiju, who already has the strength of a vice admiral, has the blessing of a technological combat uniform. If she adds the power of a devil fruit, she will become a general sooner or later. Moreover, he is also a devil fruit person who can swim in the sea with the help of a combat uniform. Click. When Reiju Silver Kiba took a bite, a vacancy appeared on the devil fruit, and at the same time, her complexion suddenly changed. Smelly, rotten, bitter. All the words that humans can think of to describe the unpleasant taste are all concentrated on the devil fruit in Reiju's mouth. Growing up as a princess since childhood, Reiju is naturally delicious and spicy, and the taste of devil fruit is 100 times more unpalatable to her than chewing wax. Yuck! Feeling a surge in her stomach, Reiju wanted to spit out the pulp, so scared that Tina directly covered her mouth with a rude method, and then slammed the devil fruit into her stomach. In order to obtain the power given by the devil fruit, you must swallow the first mouthful, no matter what method you use. If you don't swallow the first mouthful and spit it out, you will also not get the ability of the devil fruit. Boom! Suddenly, on the ground where the devil fruit in Reiju's hand fell, a faint breeze lingered in her eyes. Chapter 287-Natural Department. The next moment, Reiju sprinted to the bathroom and vomited while holding a big pout. What is that and how does it feel like I'm eating shit? Wait, shit, toilet. Yuck. Reiju was once again disgusted by the picture she imagined, and she retched again. She is a girl, and she is also the princess of Germa. When has she ever eaten such an unpalatable thing? At this moment, Leiluo flicked his fingers, and a golden light penetrated the wall and submerged into Reiju's body, constantly soothing her restless stomach juices. Feel the power of the devil fruit. After a while, Leiluo said to Reiju, who came out of the bathroom. The only thing Leiluo can be sure of about this devil fruit with unknown abilities is that it is a fruit related to Hefeng. As for which category it belongs to, he has no idea at all. According to what Leiluo knew, Reiju slowly closed her beautiful eyes, adjusted her state to an extremely quiet state, and quietly felt the new power that just appeared in her body. Suddenly, with a cool breeze caressing the faces of Renaud and Tina, a look of shock appeared in their eyes. This is the wind and wind fruit of the natural system. However, just as Leiluo was about to wake up Reiju, the howling wind was like a wild horse that had taken off its reins, unscrupulously vented out of Leiju's body and swept up everything in the room. What a terrifying power! Tina, who was holding Leiluo's arm tightly, looked at Reiju, who was motionless and unaffected by her duty, and couldn't help but exclaimed. The sight in front of her was just that Reiju had unintentionally triggered the ability of the devil fruit, and more importantly, the intensity of the wind seemed to continue to rise, and there was no sign of stopping. Click. The sound of objects breaking into Leiluo's ears. Looking for the sound, he only saw a number of small cracks on the roof, which were constantly expanding. Reiju, wake up! Leiluo's voice suddenly sounded, passing through the howling wind without hindrance and falling into Reiju's heart. Boom, boom, boom. Accompanied by Reiju, who suddenly opened her eyes, the power of the wind disappeared in an instant, only the sound of furniture breaking after falling to the ground. Looking at the messy house in front of her, and Leiluo and Tina with messy hair, a deep guilt appeared on Reiju's face. At this moment, several high-level officials also stopped watching at several locations in the naval headquarters. The next day. Boy, what happened to you last night? Why are you like Panda now? Carp, who got up early for a stroll, saw Leiluo with two big dark circles under his eyes, and asked thoughtfully. Last night, because of Leiju's unintentional release of the fruit power, her room with Tina was almost completely destroyed. Leiluo, who had been busy cleaning up all night, was naturally listless. It's nothing, it's just that I haven't had a good rest. Leiluo, who stretched and relieved the fatigue in his body a little, said slowly. Why don't I ask Sakazuki to postpone the battle between you and Pulsolino for a day? It doesn't have to be. You remember, Pulsolino has a fatal flaw, which is that he relies too much on the ability of the glittering fruit. Thanks to Lieutenant General Carp for the reminder. For Huang Yuan, Leiluo didn't take it to heart at all. There is no need to say much about the difference between a yellow monkey who mainly relies on glitter fruit to fight and Leiluo whose glitter fruit is only one of his abilities. Yo, did Lieutenant General Garp help Leiluo like this? Suddenly, a light and shadow appeared beside Garp and Leiluo, it was the yellow monkey who was going to Icefire Island. Looking at Huang Yuan's lazy smile, Lei Luo understood that he didn't seem to be cared by someone either. Boy, I heard that your light fruit ability is very different from this old man's sparkling fruit. Why don't you and I warm up a little first? Huang Yuan lowered his head slightly and looked down at Lei Luo with a playful look. In the world of One Piece, the height setting is extremely abnormal. As an ordinary person, Kizaru has a huge body that is 3 meters away. With his mocking smile at the corners of his mouth, Lei Luo feels very uncomfortable. What do you say? Lei Luo snorted and didn't give Huang Yuan a good look. It's not big, but it's quite temperamental. Since we both have the speed of light, how about a race? The end point is Ice and Fire Island. After giving Lei Luo a chuckle, Kizaru turned to look at Carp. Then asked Carp to read in the future. The competition between light and light, this gimmick suddenly aroused Garp's curiosity. Then get ready, the old man counts 3 and starts, 3, 2, 1. At the moment when the words rang out in Garp's mouth, the figures standing on both sides of him disappeared in the blink of an eye. If it weren't for the 2 golden traces in the air, even if it was said that Garp had always been the only one here, many people would believe it. As expected of the light. Looking at the 2 figures that disappeared on the sea level with just one breath, Garp couldn't help sighing. Call out. Bastard, do a sneak attack. Lei Luo's face sank after a slight pause due to the sudden beam of light in front of him. He didn't expect that, as a dignified admiral of the Navy, Huang Yuan would actually use this method during the race. Light prison binding. Unwilling to be outdone, Lei Luo waved his hand, and along with the slight vibration of the space, tiny cracks appeared one by one, and the dazzling golden light of 6 paths shot out, connecting with each other and encircling each other, holding the fast-moving yellow monkey tightly. Surrounded. In this regard, Kizaru just smiled slightly, and the figure in the next moment turned into a little golden light drifting away. After passing through the gap in the light prison, it solidified again and continued to move forward at a more terrifying speed. On the sea, 2 golden lights were running side by side, and various light-related visions that appeared from time to time in the air kept hitting the 2 of them. But even if the visions became more numerous and the power contained in them also increased, they could not stop the 2 golden lights from advancing. Ultimate came, and Lei Luo knew very well that 100 meters further ahead was where the Ice and Fire Island was located. Wait a minute, why did Kazuna suddenly turn around? Just when the 2 were evenly matched, Lei Luo discovered that the direction of the Japanese ape had changed. Even if it had the speed of light, it was a very time-consuming decision. The next second, the moment Lei Luo touched the Ice and Fire Island with his feet, his face changed again, he raised his head suddenly, and looked at the Yata mirror that appeared in the air at an unknown time. Boy, it seems that the winner of this race is the old man. Kizaru's frivolous voice sounded above the sea, and the Ice and Fire Island under Lei Luo's feet also vanished with a single thought. Chapter 288-Light vs. Light. Sure enough, Ginger is still old and spicy. The figure fell into the real Ice and Fire Island and felt the real touch of the earth under his feet. Lei Luo's view of the yellow monkey changed a little. When the 2 of them attacked each other just now, Kizaru actually took the opportunity to set up a golden light 8-tag mirror in the sky, and then use the refraction of light to insinuate the fantasy of the Ice and Fire Island in front of the 2 of them. Perhaps this trick is useless for most navies, but it is the most effective for Lei Luo, who has never been to Ice and Fire Island. The real Ice and Fire Island and the feeling of heat and cold from the other direction are so real, coupled with the phantom, this mirage really deceived Lei Luo's eyes. The fact that the yellow ape is too dependent on the ability of the glittering fruit has long been known to Lei Luo. He has always thought that the yellow ape relies on the power of the fruit, but now he really understands that the so-called dependence is just the yellow ape's influence on the fruit. The degree of development of the fruit ability is too deep. Hey, boy, Ice and Fire Island is half fire and half ice. Don't you feel that your feet are no different from ordinary dirt? At this moment, after the yellow monkey in front of Lei Luo left, the figure turned into golden light and disappeared. Suddenly thinking of something, Lei Luo raised his head again, only to find that the golden light eight-handed mirror in the sky slowly began to dissipate at this moment. Played again. Looking at the island that gradually became green all around, Lei Luo's heart was burning with anger. He didn't expect that Kyabu would set up two mirages one after another. The first was an illusion, and the second was an illusion that covered the real thing. Lei Luo raised his hands, and tens of thousands of tiny light beams continued to converge, extending from his wrist, gradually forming the appearance of a spear. Boom! Driven by his emotions, Lei Luo slammed the ground under his feet, and his body shot out. The sharpness of the light spear in front of his arms even split the space faintly, and slaughtered towards the yellow monkey. Wow, so scary. Looking at Lei Luo, who had already rushed in front of him in just one breath, Kizaru had a frightened look on the surface, but there was no sign of dodging. The light spears crossed and fell, and Kyabu's body, which was cut into 4 halves, did not flow out of a drop of blood, but turned into an aurora-like daytime, causing Lei Luo to be temporarily blinded for a while. Danger! The sudden warning from Observation Haki made Lei Luo forcibly stop his unfinished offensive, and backhanded the light spear behind him. Ding! A harsh voice sounded, and I don't know when it appeared in the hands of the yellow monkey behind Lei Luo. The Tiancong Yunjian and the light spear collided, and with that fierce force, Lei Luo's body sank in an instant. The terrifying high temperature emanating from the ground lava slapped Lei Luo's face, but Lei Luo smiled slightly. Kazuna, do you think you are the only one who has been calculating? The same Tiancong cloud sword suddenly appeared in front of Kizaru's throat, and behind him was Lei Luo, who was holding the sword in his backhand. Is it a clone again? Kizaru watched the figure below him turn into golden light, but there was no shock on his face, as if all this had always been in his master. Swish swish. In the air, countless light bombs suddenly appeared and smashed into the ground overwhelmingly, causing bursts of lava to splash in an instant. Seeing the bad situation, Lei Luo turned into light and shadow, and rushed into the distant ice area. You ask why Lei Luo didn't directly take action to get rid of the yellow monkey. Remember, the current Lei Luo doesn't know armament Haki. Besides, who said that the yellow monkey he countered must be the body? Kid, remember, emotions can affect a person's judgment. Above the firmament, the previous golden light eight-handed mirror merged together, and the body of the yellow monkey officially appeared. In the battle between Lei Luo and Gedges yesterday, Kizaru already knew Akatsuki that Lei Luo has the ability to make a clone. As a battle-hardened veteran, he naturally won't forget this. At this moment, if someone is present, they will definitely not be cheering for the mutual calculation between the two, because their fight is too fast. It was almost not even a second from the time when Lei Luo condensed the light spear to the appearance of the yellow monkey body. This is the battle between Light and Hang, an absolute speed battle. This bastard, Kizaru, has been playing me with applause since it affected my mentality from the very beginning. It seems that I haven't fought against the strong for too long, and my mentality has deteriorated. Lei Luo, who was hiding in an ice cellar, took advantage of the low temperature of the ice to ease the anger in his heart. It is necessary to remain calm during the battle, especially when facing a strong enemy, because the opponent was weak in Beihai. Lei Luo's mood unknowingly swelled, which led to the situation just now. Hey, I found you. Suddenly, Huang Yuan's wretched face appeared in front of Lei Luo's eyes, almost touching his face. This is the speed of light. Even if you search the entire ice and fire island, it will only take a few seconds. Boom. The two fists, which were also wrapped in golden light, collided, and the power emitted instantly shook the entire ice cellar to collapse, and the two light and shadows jumped into the sky to face each other. As annoying as you look, I have to say, I should thank you for teaching me a lesson. Lei Luo didn't act rashly as before, but thanked the yellow monkey. As the Navy, this is what the old man should do. Next, the old man will not show mercy. That General Yellow Monkey must be careful. Lei Luo and Huang Yuan looked at each other and smiled, and the two lights and shadows collided again in the sky. A warship off the Ice and Fire Island. This kid's future achievements are definitely above the three of us. Akainu, who had a panoramic view of everything that happened just now, said that he valued Lei Luo more and more. Pelusolino is not a fuel-efficient lamp, but depending on the situation, the battle between the two of them will not end for a while. Fujitora smiled slightly. He had also personally experienced the true strength of Kizaru. Since it won't be over in a while, then go back and wait for the result. Fujitora, remember to call me later. The green cow in the green robe yawned, lay casually on the deck, and fell asleep. Return to headquarters. Akainu didn't say much about Green Bull's attitude. After all, compared to the yellow ape who clocks in and goes to get off work on time every day, Green Bull is usually lazy. Once he has a task, he will always be the first. Individual. Lei Luo, let this old man see how deep you are hiding. Looking back at the two dazzling golden lights on Ice and Fire Island, Akainu murmured. Akainu firmly believed that if Lei Luo was trained properly, he would definitely be the next Marshal of the Navy. Chapter 289 _ The Strength of the Ape. Come again. Before he finished speaking, the two golden rays of light collided again, and the speed was far beyond the number of posts that could be discerned by the naked eye. Looking at the entire Ice and Fire Island at this time, whether it is in the sky and underground, in the lava or in the ice, there are only the afterimages left by the battle between the two, and the aftermath of the energy that made the sea surging. Speed has always been one of the factors to measure a strong person, because reaching the ultimate speed already means invincible defense and unprecedented power. Is that even a battle between humans? On a ship on the sea in the distance, Gedges supported the guardrail. As a swordsman, Yax just stood there dumbfounded, looking at the sword energy on the island, and his eyes kept flashing. Gedges or Yax, both of them clearly understand that the slashes flying in the sky on the Ice and Fire Island, even if it is just one, is enough to destroy the ship and both of them. This is a terrifying battle they have never seen in their entire lives. Still too slow. Sweat gradually fell from Lei Luo's forehead. He didn't expect that this yellow ape, who had been relying too much on the fruit ability, would have such a terrifying speed, even surpassing the speed of light. What depends on the ability of the fruit? This is clearly the degree of development of the fruit, which is enough to deal with all the powerhouses in the world, and there is no need to cultivate too much three-color domineering. Aren't you armament hockey? Suddenly, golden light flickered in Kayabu's arms, and Tiankong Yunjian's blessing skyrocketed several times in an instant. It was just a challenge that separated him and Lei Luo. Armament hockey is the only effective way to deal with natural devil fruits. However, Kizaru saw Lei Luo's observation hockey and conqueror's hockey, but never saw Lei Luo use armament hockey. None of the enemies I encountered in ordinary times was worth using armament hockey, so I didn't practice much. Lei Luo casually made up a reason. He couldn't tell Huang Yuan that he was from another world. He had only been here for more than a month, and he didn't know anything about the cultivation method of three-color domineering. Natural devil fruit people also have their own limits. With your strength, you really don't need to practice. To the reason given by Lei Luo, Huang Yuan gave a positive answer, but soon he changed his voice. However, among the real powerhouses, the competition is the three-color domineering. Throughout the whole pirate world, not every strong person is necessarily a devil fruit person, but they all have one thing in common, that is, at least in observation hockey and armament hockey, they have extremely high attainments. In the eyes of powerhouses such as Carp and Roger, only by cultivating the three-color domineering to ultimate can they be among the crowd. As for the ability of the devil fruit, it will indeed change the status of the weak, but for them, this is just the icing on the cake, and it is not worthy of praise. But whether it's you, Marshal Akainu, or the former General Aokiji, aren't they all world famous for their fruit abilities? Lei Luo agrees with the conclusion given by Huang Yuan, but he also knows that the really powerful devil fruits are always in demand. It is rumored in the world that the admiral of the navy is a little worse than the four emperors, but does this line really exist? After the words were finished, the lazy and wretched expression of Huang Yuan changed, which was a seriousness that Lei Luo had never seen before. At this time, I saw Kizaru holding the Tiankong cloud sword in front of him, and the middle between his hands and the sword body gradually moved towards both ends. Every time he moved an inch, part of the bright golden light disappeared, and it was replaced by a dark, dark light. Attach armament Haki to the elements. The scene in front of him was also the first time Lei Luo saw it. Even in the original comics, he had never heard of such an operation. Swish. Just as Lei Luo was shocked, the pitch-black Tiankong Yunjian shook violently, and in one breath, he gave birth to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and 8 to 16. That was a full 16 Amangus cloud swords wrapped by armament Haki. The domineering of the old man is indeed weaker than that of the four emperors, Akainu and Aokiji, and even less commendable than Lieutenant General Garp and others, but in terms of fruit ability and domineering compatibility, this old man is the first recognized by the world's strong. 1. Huang Yuan smiled. There was no trace of wretchedness, only endless domineering and arrogance, approaching Lei Luo. Go. Accompanied by a light move with Kizaru's right hand, the Tiankong Yunjian, which carried an extremely dangerous aura, shot out one after another, leaving 10 six-paths pitch-black ink lines in the sky. Seeing that Huang Yuan was not holding back, Lei Luo naturally didn't dare to despise him at all, and frantically mobilized the power in his body, forcing his speed to break through the shackles and enter a new realm. Damn, there's just not enough time. Before Lei Luo could mobilize all the power in his body, the pitch-black Tiankong Yunjian had arrived as promised. In a hurry, Lei Luo had no choice but to dodge first. No, why are there only 9 swords and the remaining 7? Observation Haki suddenly started in his mind, and pictures appeared in Lei Luo's mind. The 5 Tiankong Yunjian behind him, after dodging by himself, will just be pierced through the chest by the remaining 2. On this day, Kong Yunjian was actually given observation Haki by Kyabu. Since you can't dodge, you have to fight hard. Golden Light Curse. At that moment, Lei Luo compressed all the light in his body to the extreme, and turned into a golden robe to cover his body. This was the first time in his history that he used such a level of golden light spell. At the same time, with the protection of the golden light spell, Lei Luo never stopped, and continued to use the light emitted by the sun to condense the 6-sided light shield and tightly wrap himself up, down, left, right, front, and back. Even so, Lei Luo still has no confidence in his heart. After all, the attack of Kizaru is armament Haki, who is known as the nemesis of the natural devil fruit. Little devil, if you only use fruit ability and 3-color domineering, you still have a long way to go. And now, using the trick you did when you fought against Lieutenant General Garp, physique is your only way to win. Just as the voice of the yellow monkey fell into Lei Luo's ears, the 16 Tiankong cloud swords that were about to touch the golden light shield vanished in an instant. Will taijutsu really be effective for those who possess the elemental nature devil fruit ability? Such a question appeared in Lei Luo's mind. But now, when he can no longer play cards like Susanoo, he can only rely on the 8 inner gates. 7th Gate View Gate, open. The golden light dissipated, blue air waves rose into the sky, and Lei Luo with red skin stood in the sky. Inside his body, there was a violent force that was hard to hide. Chapter 290_closing. What's that? Gedges and Yaks looked at Lei Luo in the distance, and the excitement in their hearts was pushed to a climax again. Whether it is the Tiankong Yunjian of the previous Japanese ape, or the current Lei Luo in this state, they have left an indelible impression in their hearts. Strong, indescribable in words, this is the real top powerhouse between heaven and earth. Lei Luo, you don't seem to be the pinnacle now. I don't know if it was his own delusion or not, but Kizaru could feel that when Lei Luo used the 8 inner gates, every time he opened a gate, there would be a roar in his body, but 7 sounds seemed not to be the limit. Because these 7 sounds came from the blood vessels in various parts of Lei Luo's body, and there seemed to be another door at the heart that finally surrounded him. Yes, there is another gate, but that gate is the gate of death. Once it is used, the enemy will die, and I will die or be disabled. Only those who have practiced the 8 inner gates themselves will understand that after Might Guy fought against 6 Paths Madara, it was not that Naruto did not treat his leg bones, but that the bones had been completely turned into powder and then burned by the high temperature in the body. The gate of death is the supreme meaning of life towards death, the profound meaning of ultimate power in exchange for irresistible death. I hope you can observe the next blow carefully, and it is not in vain for the old man to take the risk. Huang Yuan took a deep breath, and there was a hint of fear in his tone. Why should people with natural devil fruit abilities be afraid of physical art? Moreover, his next attack will inevitably be the Day Tiger. Is there any other secret hidden among the Day Tiger? One after another doubts appeared in my heart, but Lei Luo didn't hold on to it for too long. After all, even with his physical fitness, he couldn't hold on for too long with all 7 doors open. Then I'll make a move, Day Tiger. Lei Luo's fist swung out at a very slow speed, but this punch, every inch it moved, would attract all the forces around it. In the last moment, the tiger roared into the sky, and the white tiger the size of a hill opened its blood basin. With a big mouth, he slaughtered towards the yellow monkey. Just as Lei Luo punched, Kizaru didn't stop for a moment. An unfathomable handprint appeared in his hands constantly. The appearance of each imprint also took time out of the light around him, turning it into a shape. A multicolored vertical light array stood in front of him. The ultimate flash. With the final push of Kizaru's hands, the light array became dazzling, and the naked eye could not look directly at it. At the same time, a light energy ray suddenly blasted out and collided with the Day Tiger. Boom boom boom. Ice and Fire Island began to collapse, and countless huge waves were aroused on the sea, and the giant energy ripples continued to spread. Even the naval headquarters, which was 100 miles away, could feel a slight vibration. Lei Luo can actually push the yellow monkey to the point of being real. Akainu's eyes narrowed slightly, and through the window, his eyes fixed on the dazzling light in the distant sky. It's a rare time that the yellow monkey didn't release water in the battle, and I don't know if Lei Luo has a chance to win in the end. Lieutenant General Crane rubbed her ears and said to Sengoku and Garp, the incessant sound of tiger roars really startled her. Lieutenant General Crane, can't the elementalization of General Yellow Ape avoid this trick of Lei Luo? Kirby and Balloon couldn't believe that this man who seemed to be only 3 or 4 years older than him could actually deliver a blow that surpassed the limit of Kizaru's endurance. Ha ha ha, Sengoku, what is this kid's move called a tiger, but he has already touched the limit of taijutsu indefinitely. Even me, I'm not sure that it must be better than him in this respect. Hey, Kizaru is going to suffer a bit this time. After all, armament hockey is a brand new power condensed after reaching a certain level of taijutsu. Karp and Sengoku looked at each other and said in harmony that although they didn't think Lei Luo would definitely win, they definitely wouldn't think Kyabu could easily win. After a long time, the Ice and Fire Island was over. The original 2 figures have completely disappeared, only Lei Luo lying on top of the ice, with a big mouth in his mouth, Kazuya whose clothes are mostly broken, and 2 young figures in a coma. Thank you, General Kizaru. Keep your hands, and give pointers. Lei Luo smiled at Huang Yuan with difficulty. Now, because he has kept all 7 doors open for a long time, his muscles are already sore, and he can no longer move freely at least for a short time. Just at the beginning of the fight, Lei Luo still didn't understand what Niigata wanted him to observe, but after a long time in the two's offensive, a little bit of darkness gradually appeared above the Day Tiger, and then told Lei Luo. Armament hockey, he will too. However, it is a pity that the ultimate flash of the yellow monkey was better in the end, which made Lei Luo, who was suddenly forced to release the 7-door state and temporarily unable to act, could not stop it. Fortunately, Kizaru discovered this in time, and at the risk of being swallowed by the Day Tiger, he forcibly transferred the ultimate flash to the Ice and Fire Island, so that the original island was only half its original size. As for the two comatose young figures, they were stunned by the Conqueror's haki erupting from the bodies of Lei Luo and the Yellow Ape, and Gedges and Yaks who were submerged by the waves. This is the point that Lei Luo admires the most. He didn't expect that even if he was hit hard by the Day Tiger, he would still be able to transform into a beam of light and save the two through the waves. It seems that what everyone else said is quite right. The old man's cultivation of domineering is a little loose because of the power of the glittering fruit. Otherwise, you won't be so embarrassed by your kid. Looking at the blood flowing out from time to time under the golden light on the chest in front of him, Lei Luo knew very well that Kizaru was injured by himself this time, but he seemed to have a technique similar to light therapy, and he was constantly treating his injuries. But it's embarrassing to say that this old man is a dignified generation of naval admirals, and he has the appearance of being seriously injured by your kid, but after you recover, it is time to clock in after work, and this old man will not care about you. When it comes to the topic of clocking in and going to work, Huang Yuan has once again returned to his former wretchedness. The iconic smile and the happy appearance of dancing can't help but make Lei Luo feel speechless. Are you seriously injured? Even if you are seriously injured, why are you still lighting a cigarette now? Seeing Huang Yuan smoking and giggling on the side, and from time to time, Oye's villain's wretched appearance was heard from time to time, Lei Luo had to mobilize the light therapy technique by himself, while constantly recalling the last collision between the two just now. Recalling the feeling when armament haki was activated. Chapter 291-Akainu's Frenzy. Have you heard? The battle between General Kisamus and Lei Luo, Fujitora and Green Bull actually sank the Icefire Island in half. I seemed to see a tiger and a super-large light energy ray on the sea in the distance that day. Ah, am I the only one who suddenly fainted when I saw half of it? Brother, so am I. We both have a hard life. We are inexplicably faint. We missed a visual feast in vain. Gedges and Adams watched the hotly debated content of the passing navies, which was all about the decisive battle on Ice and Fire Island yesterday, and helpless smiles appeared on their faces. Yesterday, the two of them only remembered that Lei Luo had transformed into a brand new form, and then the yellow monkey seemed to condense a light formation, and then they didn't know anything, they only knew that they were in the marshal's office after waking up. Even after a night of rest, the two of them still did not forget the cold eyes of Akainu, and the words that dared to reveal what they saw, and then went to the underwater prison to spend the rest of their lives. How could you beat a hairy boy? In the marshal's office, Akainu's tone was extremely frivolous, and he seemed to have the feeling that he was about to burst out laughing. And the person who was ridiculed by Akainu was at this moment, in the way that Jyu was paralyzed, sitting on the sofa opposite him with a lazy face. This is for the purpose of guiding the newcomers, and in addition to saving those two boys, otherwise victory will be nothing more than turning around for the old man. Oh, is that so? Now, as an admiral, explain to you, where did you go in the 3 hours before the end of work after the battle yesterday? Hey, Sakazuki, your suspicion is getting worse and worse. How can a good employee like this conscientious worker be absent from work? Facing the embarrassingly smiling Kizaru, Akainu rolled his eyes at him. The two have been dealing with each other since they were teenagers. Can you still not know who Kizaru is? Okay, let's get down to business. What do you think of Lei Luo's real combat power? Can he be qualified for the position of the 4th Admiral? The Admiral of the Navy represents the face of the Navy, and the strength must be the strength of the invincible party to be competent. In the current Navy, Akainu knows very well that, not to mention the older generation, not to mention his own generation, let alone the current younger generation, it is only the generation that will inherit the naval heritage from Smog and so on, is too weak. Today's Smog's strength is at the upper level of his generation. Putting aside the world-famous powerhouses such as Yuhi Shanks and Hokage Mahak who are about his age, he is just a doflamming brother, a thing that can be instantly killed by Aokiji. Smog is far from an opponent. The future of the Navy is so unsatisfactory, and a kainu can only choose the strong from the younger generation to support the face of the current and future Navy, which is why he values Lei Luo. Enough young, stronger than the lieutenant general. How should I put it? That kid's strength in front of me is not as good as that of the 4 emperors, but it shouldn't be a problem to be a general. However, that kid still has a great improvement in the 3-color domineering, plus he has exposed or the trump card that is still hidden. I believe that in the near future, even you and I are no match for him. Quote. Kazuna closed his eyes and recalled. During the battle with Lei Luo, Huang Yuan found many times that Lei Luo's eyes had turned into Yuhi color, but he was quickly suppressed by him. But in that short-lived time, Kizaru's observation haki kept telling him that he was invincible and must escape. In addition, in the video that Tina once sent back, Lei Luo used some of Susano's methods when beheading Victor, which also made Kizaru unforgettable. There is also the door of death in the mouth of Lei Luo. In the later conversation, Huang Yuan learned that once the 8 inner gates has opened the last door of death, it has already drawn a clear line with humans and entered the realm of God. Although it is said that after the door of death is opened, it can only last for a short time, and it will still die, but that sentence is enough to allow ordinary people to gain power that is several times that of a naval admiral. The 8 inner gates. Was it the way he fought Lieutenant General Garp? A flash of enthusiasm suddenly appeared in Akainu's eyes. If what Kyabaru said is true, then the Navy will reach an unprecedented level of strength. You think too much. Lei Luo said that this move requires extremely high physical fitness. Although ordinary people can practice it, it may take years or even a lifetime to open the final door to death. Intensive exercise. Besides, even the first few doors, the physical load it brings is far beyond your imagination. Quote. As for Akainu's thoughts, how could Kizaru not know? As long as ordinary people can practice it, it doesn't matter how many doors you can open. Seeing Akainu, whose frantic flames in his eyes were growing even higher, Kizaru sighed helplessly. This guy who wants to implement justice is too extreme, and he does not consider the consequences at all. However, if Lei Luo is willing to teach the 8 inner gates to the Navy, it seems like a good choice. Little devil, do you mean that? Somewhere in the Admiralty, Garp and Sengoku were sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed. The moment they opened their eyes, there was a faint blue wave of air beating around their bodies. Seeing this scene in front of him, Lei Luo was also quite speechless. The physical fitness of these 2 old men is too strong. Even if they just practiced, they have changed and reached the point where they are infinitely close to opening the 7th door. Do you 2 want to learn too? Inadvertently noticing the adoration of Kebi and Bailu Mabe in their eyes, Lei Luo asked with a smile. Want to learn the 8 inner gates? The answer must be yes, so why not ask? However, after thinking about it for a while, Kirby and Bailu Mabe only nodded slightly. Mr. Lei Luo, this is your unique skill. Although we both really want to learn, but you don't agree, we won't secretly ask the teacher for advice. Come to me when you want to learn, don't talk so much nonsense. In the face of Kebi's politeness, Lei Luo simply chose to ignore it. The 8 inner gates is not a secret. As long as they have the patience to insist on high-intensity training every day, they can teach it, and there is no harm. Really, thank you Mr. Lei Luo. It's okay, you 2 see, there are many acupuncture points in the human body, and these 8 places limit the human body's potential. The so-called the 8 inner gates are. Since that day, in the waters around the naval headquarters, every morning, 2 teenagers have been swimming desperately again. Chapter 292-General Award Ceremony. The Naval Headquarters, formerly the G1 Division of the New World Navy. Countless reporters from all over the world gathered at this moment, and all the officers of the Navy, except those who were on special missions, also returned. Such a huge scene, even if Akainu was the marshal at the beginning, was beyond the reach, and all of this was due to the unprecedented move of the Navy, the promulgation of generals. The previous Navy, whether it was in the era when Sengoku was a marshal, or when Kobo Kukong was a marshal in the era, had never seen such a scale, but this time, the Navy actually released the news of the appointment of 4 generals. After the war, the Navy plummeted, and this time, it was Akainu to prove to the people of the world and the unscrupulous pirates on the sea that the Navy has never failed, and its industry has never declined. For most people, their strength will reach the real peak from the age of 40, and it will not decline until the age of 50, and the special case of Lei Luo is the best choice to regain face for the Navy. A general who seems to be around 20 years old, everyone knows that this is beyond the existence of young men such as Garp, Roger and Whitebeard who stood on the top of the world. Victor, the saber-toothed tiger who used to be all-powerful in the New World, seems to have been killed by that young general. I heard that the young general destroyed the entire kingdom of Germa with only 1 man and 1 ship. I also heard people say that he alone ended the myth of the North Sea monster. The other 2 generals are said to be terrifying existences that are not weak to the 4 emperors. As for the young general, who knows if he is a work packaged by the Navy? Ha ha ha, without seeing it with my own eyes, I definitely don't believe that there is such a young strong man in the world. Could it be that the Navy really wants to establish an era of great peace without pirates running rampant? Without waiting for the senior officers of the Navy to appear, heated discussions began all over the world. In the eyes of most of them, maybe Fujitora and Lu Niudu have the fighting power of the 4 emperors, but Lei Luo, but no one wants to believe that. As for any glorious achievements of Lei Luo released by the Navy, in the eyes, it is more like a kind of packaging, a fake powerhouse specially created in order to maintain the face of the Navy. Wu tilde. The long sound of the horn came from the sea, and a warship with a huge naval flag came from the sea, riding the wind and waves. The people standing on the bow were Karp, Sengoku, Akainu and other high-ranking Navy officers. The 4 generals who were on the cusp. When the warship docked, Lei Luo walked from the top to the bottom of the ship. Facing the crowd of people, he did not dodge anything, and he was neither humble nor arrogant. As early as yesterday, the Navy headquarters had already completed the awards for the lieutenant generals and newcomers with the following positions, so as not to have any accidents that would steal the limelight of Lei Luo and the 3 of them today. Thank you for coming from all over the world, today. Akainu recited the cliché lines in his hands, and no one was willing to listen carefully, because this was the countless times they had heard it, whether it was Karp being proclaimed the title of naval hero, or the position of the Navy's senior high-ranking, it was all this. A set of rhetoric that never changes. After a long time, the speech was over, and under the chanting of Akainu, Kizaru was the leader, Green Bull and Fujitora were second, and the last 4-member team of Lei Luo strode onto the ceremony platform representing the highest Navy salute. In the second step, the 3 Army Commander Cyborg Kong, the former Marshal Sengoku, the Navy hero Karp and the current Marshal Sakazuki issued medals and uniforms for the 4 generals respectively. With the medal representing the highest status of the Navy worn on the chest, Lei Luo and the others took the cape from Karp and the others, threw their arms and draped it behind their backs. At this moment, a gust of breeze blew, accompanied by the word of justice on the cloak of the 4 people, which was like a dragon, and thunderous applause resounded throughout the entire sea area. The next item, the general's speech. As the 3rd step of the award ceremony unfolded, Lei Luo was suddenly taken aback. Fortunately, Lei Luo was the last speaker, and there was still plenty of time for ideas. The old man is Kiraru Polsolino, so I won't say much about self-introduction. For this re-election, the old man hopes that the Navy will be united. My name is Green Bull. I have forgotten my real name for too long. As for why I want to join the Navy, it must be to maintain world peace. Between the yellow ape and the green cow, the contrast is extremely obvious. Both of them are clearly capable of being in their 50s, but Huang Yuan has a wretched appearance and a lot of nonsense, and at the same time exudes a lazy atmosphere all the time. On the other hand, the green cow is tall and straight, with strong vigor, and the heroic spirit between the eyebrows is overwhelming. The unparalleled handsome appearance and the cold feeling brought by the short speech have instantly attracted a large number of fans. Hello everyone, I am Fujitora Life. The goal is to protect everyone's safety and prevent the interests of the people from being desecrated by pirates. Fujitora's personality is very gentle, and he treats people with equal courtesy regardless of identity. The heart buried under his chest that is always missed by ordinary people has also gained a lot of fans for him. Hey, boy, have you thought about the code name? Garp's voice suddenly sounded. What code name? Kizuka, Akainu, Aokiji, Fujitora, and Green Bull, these are all code names they came up with based on their own abilities. You don't understand the award ceremony at all, right? Looking at Lei Luo's slightly wrinkled brows, Garp said inwardly, isn't this kid doing his homework before? Lei Luo, who was also looking at Garp, kept blaming Garp in his heart. If it wasn't for your old Tenten who took me to practice the 8 inner gates, how could the people sent by Akainu visit no one again and again? I hope everyone can work hard with us. Fujitora bowed deeply to everyone, and his speech was over. At this moment, everyone focused their attention on this boy who was built as a myth by the Navy and had a helpless expression on his face. Lei Luo, who was already thinking about his speech, was disturbed by Garp, not to mention the code name, and even the long speech in his mind disappeared. Seeing Lei Luo faltering and unable to say a word for a long time, Akainu's complexion suddenly changed drastically, his eyes bursting with man-eating gleams, staring straight at Lei Luo. He didn't expect that this man, who had been given high hopes by him, would make such a low-level mistake at this critical juncture. Ha ha ha, it turns out that he is really a young man who has never seen the world. Chapter 293_Evil Eye. Ha ha ha, it seems that he is still a stinky boy who has never seen the world and smells dry. The Navy seems to have picked the wrong person this time. It's this kid who can leave so many myths in Beihai. I'll just say, those must have been dispatched by the high-ranking Navy, and in the end the credit was forcibly attributed to him. Boy, go back to your mother's arms for milk. Go down. Get off. For a time, there was overwhelming swearing and ridicule at the naval headquarters, which made Akainu's face even more ugly. After all, this was an award ceremony that was broadcast live to everyone all over the world. Broken. Huang Yuan gave a wry smile. He also did not expect that Lei Luo would appear timid on such an occasion. This is not Lei Luo's style. One after another, the sarcasm came out unnoticed, and the audience's rhetoric became more and more dirty. Lei Ju and Tina, who were standing at the bottom of the ceremony platform, looked worriedly at Lei Luo, who bowed her head and said nothing. Right now, they didn't know how to save the situation in front of them. Boom. In the air, a thunderstorm suddenly appeared out of thin air, like God's laughter, laughing at Lei Luo's embarrassing appearance. Shut the fuck up, Lao Su. Suddenly, Lei Luo raised his head, and under his grin, there was a cold killing intent. It was at that moment that the incomparably domineering aura of the king spread crazily from Lei Luo's body. In the blink of an eye, the entire naval headquarters was shrouded, and the hearts of everyone present were shrouded in layers of thick layer upon layer. Fear. This kid's conqueror's haki has reached this point. Cyborg Kong's pupils shrank sharply. He didn't even think that Lei Luo could do something that even Yuhi Fa Shanks couldn't do. In the case of not stunning others, just relying on his own courage makes everyone feel the fear of ultimate. Whether it is the Navy, the reporter, or the audience guarding the front of the TV bug, they will never forget Lei Luo's pair of bloody Yuhi eyes. As an admiral of the Navy, I don't need the approval of any of you in terms of strength. The future era of great peace will make you understand how blind you are today. Lei Luo's voice was like the roar of a dragon above the 9 heavens, and the roar of an evil spirit under the underworld. Every word kept circling in everyone's hearts and minds, and it never dissipated for a long time. This is what kind of person, and there has never been a Navy who dared to speak to the world in such a tone. This is clearly what the pirates do. Oh yes, one more thing. After a long silence, Lei Luo's voice suddenly became gentle, and his loving eyes fell on the faces of Tina and Leiju. Ms. Leiju, Ms. Tina, can you be my girlfriend? After the words fell, Lei Luo's figure appeared beside the two women in a flash. Snapped. A snap came from Lei Luo's fingertips. The next moment, the headspace of the naval headquarters suddenly burst, and the beautiful and dazzling colorful lights slowly condensed into the smiling faces of Tina and Leiju under the eyes of the whole world. Immediately following, Lei Luo opened his arms, revealing his not-so-broad, but full of security chest. I do. After Tina and Leiju were briefly shocked, 2 lines of tears fell on their faces, but they were smiling, like the 2 most beautiful flowers in the world, showing their beauty to the world. Now, I no longer dare to question Lei Luo's strength. Whether it is the Conqueror's Haki he released earlier, or the colorful aurora that appeared in the air later, they are constantly showing his strength and real strength. A happy smile appeared on Lei Luo, who embraced the 2 daughters in his arms. Play pig eat tiger, first down then up. The long-lost smile once again appeared on the faces of Akainu and other senior Navy officials. Lei Luo's actions were just his willful actions, but in the eyes of the high-level people, it looked different. First, he lowered his image in the eyes of the world, and then showed his ruthlessness with absolute arrogance. At this time, the overall image of the Navy would be greatly discounted in the world's hearts because of Lei Luo's actions. However, Lei Luo's last affectionate confession was the finishing touch, telling everyone that the Navy's ruthlessness is only in the face of criminals, because the Navy also has affection, and the Navy also has love. The last step is the reporter's question and answer session. Akainu's voice sounded, and all of a sudden the atmosphere of the naval headquarters was pushed to a climax. General Yellow Monkey, I don't know where the former General Aokiji is now. I can't comment on this, old man. General Green Bull, do you really have the confidence to realize your lofty ideals? Ideal, this is a word that a person who has full confidence in himself will say. Among those rubbish mouths who live their lives in a hurry, there will always be only distant daydreams. General Fujitora, when you treat pirates, will you be as gentleman as you are today? Not all pirates are necessarily evil, we must have a clear mirror heart that can distinguish right from wrong. Lieutenant General Leiju, Lieutenant General Tina, can you tell me how you feel now? It seems that because of Lei Luo's killing intent just now, the reporters would rather ask Leiju and Tina than have any verbal contact with Lei Luo. General Lei Luo, I don't know what your title is. Time passed, and just as the last session was about to end, a reporter finally gathered up the courage to ask Lei Luo an irrelevant question. But it is precisely in such a question that has no gold content, and in the blink of an eye, it attracts everyone's attention. Actually, I don't have a title yet. Evil Eye. Yes, he is Lei Luo, the new admiral of the Navy. Just as Lei Luo was scratching his head, Sengoku stepped forward very quickly and made up a title for Lei Luo casually. Evil Eyes, as the name suggests, a pair of eyes full of evil, the 9-tomo Samsara Sharingan, which Lei Luo had inadvertently exposed before, seems to be quite suitable for this title. Well, as General Sengoku said, my title is Evil Eye. With Lei Luo's personal confession, all the reporters thought about tomorrow's newspaper headlines. The youngest and most special general in prehistory, Evil Eye Lei Luo. Whether it is Akainu, Kyabu, Aokiji, or Fujitora and Green Bull, these titles all have animal names, and Lei Luo directly uses human organs as the code name, which is what makes him unique in the eyes of the world. Fortunately, Lord Sengoku responded quickly, and this old man didn't expect that Lei Luo didn't really come up with a code name that suits him. Looking at the reporters who were gradually leaving, Akainu heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 294-World Uproar. The next day, the announcements issued by the world government, as well as the newspapers printed by major newspaper offices, all closely revolved around the 4 current admirals of the Navy. Boss, don't let this kid compare you to Conqueror's Haki's accomplishments. Jezusbu, what are you talking about? the boss will definitely be compared by that kid named Lei Luo. Well said, Larch Road. Haha, the cooperation between Fatty and Jesus Cloth is really tacit understanding. On a small island, Yuhi Fashanks and Ben Beckman were sitting in front of the bonfire, smiling as they looked at their comrades who had been drinking heavily in front of them. Captain, the harvest of this naval conscription is not small. According to the information I have collected, that Lei Luo, as well as Lu Niu and Fujitora, are all first-class top powerhouses. Ben Beckman took a breath and said to Shanks that he had always been in close control of the whereabouts of the Navy. At this moment, a stern man with a dark sword suddenly appeared on the island, which made the original lively atmosphere stagnant for a moment. Only Shanks picked up the wine in his hand and threw it at random. Hawkeye, we are having a party, you came just in time, come and tell us that your navy is a trustworthy general. In the face of Yuhi's warm invitation, Hawkeye, a regular customer of Yuhi's pirates, didn't have any airs, and sat in front of the bonfire casually and drank the wine in his hand. I have good news for you. Straw Hat Boy Luffy studied with Raleigh, the Underworld King. Now he is on his way to the New World. The originally stagnant atmosphere became hot again with the appearance of Straw Hat Luffy. Ha ha ha, Hawkeye, drink and drink, I am happy today. Over the island, Yuhi's laughter resounded. On the empty island, a tall body comparable to a giant jumped down and sank to the bottom of the sea after stirring up huge waves on the sea. After a long time, the giant suddenly walked out from the bottom of the sea, carrying several Sea King corpses in his hands. 4 new admirals in the Navy. Oh, and a hairy boy. The giant took advantage of the newspapers scattered in the air, and a strange smile appeared on his face. That day, Guy Duo, the captain of the Beast Pirates, attempted suicide again. Kalabali, an island with the flag of the Clown flag. Oh, yesterday's award ceremony, there were actually 4 generals. Bucky the Clown, who had initially built Bucky Express, looked at today's newspaper and picked up the phone bug with Yuhi's hair on the top of his head and 3 scars at the corners of his eyes. A certain branch of the Navy was dead at this moment, and the stench of blood permeated the entire sea. Captain, all navies have been massacred. Badgers, who was wearing a wrestling mask, crushed the head of the last navy in his hand and turned back to the Blackbeard who was eating cherry pie in a big mouth behind him. Hey, now that the things have been obtained, the position of this king under the 7 Marshalseas is of no use. It's time to meet the navy as the king of the sea. Blackbeard swallowed all the cherry pie in his hand, and on the newspaper he was stepping on, there were 4 big characters, Lei Luo, with evil eyes. Senior Rayleigh, Aunt Shachi. The big thing is bad. Xiaoba, what's making you so nervous? Come on, drink some water and talk about it. In the Chambord Islands, in Shachi's tavern, Xiaoba looked flustered. Aunt Sha, hurry up and inform Senior Rayleigh and the Straw Hat Boy that the Navy appointed 4 new generals yesterday. That's bad. Rayleigh wrote that Little Monkey has set out on his way to the New World. Shachi took off the cigarette butt in her mouth, and there was a helpless wry smile on her face. However, in the whole world, whether it is the Navy or the pirates, or the king under the Chihuahua, the matter of the 4 new generals of the Navy has caused an uproar. In terms of which force has changed the most because of this matter, there is also the BIGMOM pirates. Snagger, Cracker, Smoothie. Quick, tell everyone to destroy all today's newspapers, and don't let Mom see the news that Lei Luo has become an admiral. The most anxious look appeared on Sparrow's face. Once the ant finds out about this, her idea of killing Lei Luo will only become stronger, even if the BIGMOM pirates will face the entire navy in the end. And this kind of thing, Sparrow will never let it happen. The 3 snags, who understood the seriousness of the situation, hurriedly ran out of the house, but before the 3 of them walked out of the door, they saw a gloomy Katakuri. No need to go, my mother watched the whole process of the live broadcast of the Admiral's Award ceremony yesterday. The news brought by Katakuri caused panic on the faces of the 3 generals present, a military advisor, and the most senior officials in the BIGMOM pirates. Could it be that the battle with the Navy is coming so soon? This thought emerged in each of their minds and could not be dispelled. No, why did the mother know about this, but she still hasn't called all the children for a meeting? Suddenly thinking of something, Perospero hurriedly looked at Katakuri. He hoped that his grumpy mother would make the right decision that a sea emperor should make on this crucial decision. However, Katakuri's answer was helplessly shaking his head and saying something the four were most afraid to hear. I have persuaded my mother, but in the end, my mother directly issued the highest-level Dark World Pursuit Order without authorization. The Pursuit Order in the Dark World is the most terrifying pursuit order in this sea. Those who can initiate the Pursuit Order are the powerhouses who dominate the side in the second half of the Great Route, and the highest level is only the sea. Only the existence of the Emperor level can be activated. What is the Dark World? A virtual world that includes pirates, navy, world government, Tianlong people, bounty hunters and other forces. Here, you can abandon your own identity, and as long as you can complete the task, you can get enough to satisfy all your belongings. At the same time, for anyone who completes the pursuit order in the Dark World, his identity will be kept secret forever by the initiator of the pursuit order. It is precisely because of this that the forces known as Justice will appear and some people will secretly join them. Now it's like the Navy has declared war, and the consequences must be failure, even if it is the destruction of Whitebeard at that time, we can't do it. It's over. Cut, it's a big deal, let Mom issue a few killing orders to kill Akainu and Kizaru. Perospero and Katakuri looked at their younger siblings with different attitudes, and only felt a headache to death. Chapter 295-Staff Assignments. Smog, you are the Navy, you represent justice. Justice cannot kill innocent people indiscriminately. On the sea, there is a pirate ship that has been dilapidated and may sink into the abyss at any time. Above it, there is a thick smoke, and below the smoke, there are dozens of icy corpses and several cadres who are seriously injured and dying. Mr. Lieutenant General, the order we received is to escort all the pirates caught on the way to the nearest prison. Would it be inappropriate for you to do this? Looking at the cruel scene in front of him, even the Navy soldiers who had always been on the opposite side of the pirates couldn't bear it, and they all spoke out to discourage Smog's indiscriminate killing. Although Smog is not a top expert in strength, his devotion to others, coupled with his upright conduct style, has a large number of supporters who admire him in the Navy. And these people, who have never seen their idols want to kill like this today. Woo! Seemingly moved by the pity of his soldiers, Smoker took a deep breath while taking back his own smoke. The thick white smoke covered his face, and his expression could not be seen clearly from any angle. Gu Lulin, you're right, it's my actions that are wrong. After a long time, the words slowly spit out from the smoker's mouth made the faces of the pirates show a little joy. Ha ha ha, I can survive. Good luck today. Swish, swish, swish. At this time, several spikes condensed by white smoke penetrated the chests of the pirates, and even at the moment of death, their faces still showed the cosmic joy that they could survive. There is still warm blood along the deck of the pirate ship, and soon left at the feet of the Navy soldiers. The disgusting smell of blood did not affect anyone at all, because at this time, they all stared. He closed his eyes and looked at Smog's familiar but unfamiliar back in disbelief. Listen well, in the face of pirates, you must kill them. In Smog's voice, there was no ruthlessness or killing intent, but only infinite burning anger. Why? Why did Lord Smoker become like this? Why is he, who has always cherished his life, so bloodthirsty today, when he was clearly the big brother who fought with everyone yesterday? The answer to this matter, no one except Smog knew the reason for Akatsuki. The only clue that could provide a clue was to write a word on the crumpled newspaper in his hand. Compared with the shaking around the world, the naval headquarters is much quieter, from the generals down to the miscellaneous soldiers, all waiting for Akainu's orders. From today's newspaper, I think everyone has seen the reason why the number of generals in the Navy has changed from 3 to 4, in order to correspond to the 4 emperors. However, in the case of equal top-level combat power, it is their own subordinates who decide the outcome. Fighters. Akainu's simple sentence or two greatly boosted morale and made the junior officers of the Navy understand the importance of their existence. So, now for freestanding, each of you has the right to choose to follow your favorite general. Another sentence that instantly binds the hearts of every soldier to the Navy. Such a democratic and free place is absolutely unmatched by other forces. The chaotic and disorderly autonomous lineup that was supposed to be chaotic, but this time, it took an extremely short period of time to come to an end. As a re-elected general, Kazuna has already had a group of loyal followers and new admirers. As for Green Bull and Fujitora, the former is a goal of self-confidence because of that ideal, and it also attracts many young and vigorous young people, while the latter is more because of its gentle attitude, which makes most people choose own final belonging. Perhaps it was because of the murderous intent that he showed yesterday and the presence of Yuhi's eyes, Leiluo found that there were very few people standing behind him. To put it bluntly, these people were all Yi-Ti, headed by Na and Reiju, old friends from that warship. Leiluo, who smiled helplessly, didn't expect that he would be so unpopular, but that's fine. With a small number of people, he has a lot of energy to train the elite. An elite division is enough to be worth thousands of troops. Yaks, Gedges, why don't you two choose a team? After a long time, Akainu's voice suddenly sounded, which also attracted Leiluo's eyes. At this moment, Gedges and Yaks, who were standing on one side, had a hard time deciding. The strength of Huang Yuan and Leiluo, the two of them can be said to have seen with their own eyes, but one of them was lazy, and the other showed that performance yesterday. Then turn your attention to Green Bull and Fujitora. Although it is rumored that the two are extremely strong, the strong should not remain anonymous for decades. In addition, they have never participated in the Navy before, and it is very likely that they will not know how to lead them. Soldiers fight. For a team, the basic combat effectiveness of the soldiers determines the lower limit of the strength of the army, and the leader's talent and actual combat experience are the fundamentals for raising the upper limit. The old man is old, it is enough that so many children are willing to follow the old man. I don't need someone who is indecisive. Huang Yuan and Lu Niu took the lead in expressing their stance. The rejection in their mouths will not be a stain on Gedges and Yaks, because everyone can understand that this is to give Leiluo the power of the two high-level leaders. Two children, you can choose to join the old man's team. Fujitora said righteously, but his hands were holding Green Ox and Kyabu, and there was a sly smile on the faces of the two of them with their backs facing away. At present, 3 of the 4 generals have already expressed their opinions, and the problem left to Gedges and Yaks has become the only channel from multiple choices. After the 2 of them walked behind him, Leiluo bowed to the 3 of them. Leiluo, do you mean that you are going out to find team members? After the staff assignment was over, Leiluo followed Akainu directly to the office and put forward his own ideas. In Leiluo's heart, he already had a default goal, that is, Enelu, who can be called the most powerful thunder fruit in the nature department. Yes, but the old man has one more thing to ask for. Master Marshal, but it doesn't matter. About the 8 inner gates. Hearing the words the 8 inner gates, Leiluo suddenly realized. Akainu saw the battle between Leiluo and Garp, and he must have learned more about the practice of the 8 inner gates from Kizaru. Akainu naturally won't let go of such physical skills that can directly enhance the combat power of the entire Navy in a short period of time. Chapter 296_Target Moon. After giving Akainu the training methods of the first 5 gates of the 8 inner gates and the profound meanings of body art such as the lotus flower, Leiluo embarked on the road to find Ani Road alone. Only the first 6 doors. Kazuna walked in slowly from outside the office, with a somewhat surprised face on his face. Originally, in his heart, he thought that the 8 inner gates was Leiluo's unique stunt, and would not teach it easily, but the reality was that Leiluo handed over the top 5 cultivation methods without any hesitation. As for the last 3 doors, these are already related to Morning Peacock, Tianyu, Shixiang, and finally the mysterious Night Guy, and naturally they will not be taught by Lei Luo to the personnel who remove the accidents under his command. Sky Island, the Kingdom of God. Lei Luo, who finally came here through various tedious steps, just asked an old man about Analu's whereabouts. The whole street was quiet in an instant, staring at Lei Luo. "What are you doing here?" Lei Luo, who was stared a little hairy, managed to squeeze out a kind smile. Lei Luo is naturally very clear about Analu's whereabouts. After he was defeated by Luffy because of his restraint by using the fruit's ability, he fled to the infinite land in his mind and ruled. And the so-called infinite Earth is exactly the moon in the world. According to common sense, after so many years, the shadow brought by Analu should disappear. Why do the residents of the Sky Island still react this way? Could it be that Analu is back? A bold idea appeared in Lei Luo's mind. "Young man, Analu has been away from the Sky Island for many years, and no one knows his whereabouts." Facing the indifference in the words of the originally enthusiastic old man in front of him, Lei Luo felt more and more that this matter was not simple. "Then it bothers me." After thanking the old man, Lei Luo disappeared at the corner of an alley. With Lei Luo's departure, everything on the street returned to normal, as if there had never been a visitor from outside. On that day, the sky above the kingdom of the gods on the island was shrouded in a faint golden light. "Master Shenbing, today there is a young man who is inquiring about any road from Sky Island." The old man who had talked to Lei Luo earlier was kneeling before a hall made of gold. At this moment, an army led by a pair of twin brothers suddenly burst out of the sky. Meet Zhongwu and Xiaowu adults. It turned out that since Luffy and his party left, the people led by Gonfure announced that there will be no more oppression on the empty island, and everyone will coexist peacefully. However, what no one thought was that some of the priests under the command of Analu had never died. They had used various methods such as alienation and sneak attacks to imprison Gonfure and others, and put the master of the Sky Island again in one palm. "You said someone inquired about the whereabouts of Analu. What was that person's identity?" Looking at his appearance, he should be a few years older than the Straw Hat Boy. As soon as they heard the words, Straw Hat Boy, the expressions of Zhongwu and Xiaowu suddenly changed drastically. To this day, the two of them can still clearly remember the scene of how Analu fled in embarrassment. It's a pity that Lord Ashan noticed the abnormality at high altitude, and he can't return for the time being. Ashan, the former chief priest of Analu, and the current leader of the empty island, with a tall stature contains far more power than ordinary people, and often uses a large number of slashing shells as the main attack method. Boom! Suddenly, a behemoth fell from high in the sky, stirring up dust in the sky, and at the same time leaving a human-shaped deep pit on the ground made of gold. Is it an enemy attack? Because of the purpose of the dust, Zhongwu and the others didn't see what had landed, but the figure slowly falling from the sky at the moment had a look of contempt on its face, and it was definitely not a kind person. "Hey, boy, what kind of person dares to make trouble here?" Xiaowu stretched out his arm, and a large shell was aimed at the person who came. "Didn't he tell you?" The visitor chuckled, and with a flick of his finger, the shock shell in Xiaowu's hand was completely shattered because it was difficult to absorb all this power. With just one blow, he knew that the powerful and unparalleled Middle and Small Wu turned his head and set his eyes on the trembling old man. It's him who inquired about El Nilu." The old man pointed at Lei Luo and shouted like crazy, because he had just accidentally probed into the hole and saw the dying priest Ashan. A strong man inquired about Enalu's news. Could it be that this is Enalu's enemy? Middle and Small Wu did not dare to hesitate, took out a shell and blew it forcefully in his mouth, and the loud sound instantly resounded throughout the kingdom of gods. In just a few minutes, an army of gods that numbered more than 1,000 tightly surrounded Lei Luoli with 3 circles and 3 circles. Why hasn't the priest Ashan come back yet? There was a hint of confusion in his heart, and Zhongwu blew the shell representing the highest collective order again. Different from the previous rally, This time, it was like a horn for war, because Lei Luo moved. Hey, boy, retract your foot, did I let you move? The arrival of the army gave Xiaowu enough confidence again. He didn't believe that everyone who came to the empty island would be as terrifying as the Straw Hat Boy. For Xiaowu's scolding, Lei Luo smiled, and really retracted his right foot, which had only taken one step. Dong dong dong. At that moment, the army of the gods that numbered more than 1,000, as if their souls had been evacuated, rolled their eyes and collapsed to the ground foaming at the mouth. Lei Luo really just a step forward. No, it was because his speed was so fast that he had reached a state where these weaklings could not see clearly at all. For the last time, has Analu ever been back? No, no. Very good. Boom, boom. Lei Luo finished speaking, 2 laser beams shot out from his fingertips, easily taking Zhang Xiaowu's life. Now that he knew that Analu was still deep in the moon, Lei Luo had no plans to stay. As for the biggest problem now, it is to wait here until it is dark, in order to identify the position of the moon. Go away. Lei Luo, who was sitting on the ground, glanced at the old man who came to complain. As a navy, killing these bullies on one side belongs to safeguarding justice and saving the people in dire straits, but the old man is just an ordinary resident of the empty island in the final analysis, and there is no need for execution. In a flash of time, the dark night replaced the clear sky, and amidst the twinkling stars, the moon Kiba slowly rose. That is the destination of Lei Luo's trip, the moon. Chapter 297 SS Level Rewards. It was almost early in the morning, but Lei Luo still stood there blankly, because before he left, he suddenly realized a very serious problem, that is, how to solve the problem of breathing in the moon in a vacuum state. Life-related issues. Is Enel really still alive on the moon? Lei Luo couldn't help but sent out a torture from the depths of his soul. Humans are destined to be inseparable from oxygen. Even if Analu is a resident of an empty island, he is born with a low demand for oxygen, but in the vacuum of the universe, can he survive until now? System, are you there? Do you have an oxygen tank or something? As a last resort, Lei Luo had to ask this bastard system for help. The last time I was in Venus Island, I wanted a system loan of 1 billion, and I promised not to increase any interest within a month, just make up a bit of God-level lottery points later. But this crap system has automatically deducted a bit of God-level lottery points without notifying Lei Luo. When Lei Luo took the initiative to hand it in, it was actually too embarrassed to accept it. In this way, after going back and forth, Lei Luo, who had completed the 3 tasks originally, only had a few God-level lottery points left at hand. That thing doesn't exist, but as compensation, in this lottery, the system will give the host the Turtle Breath Datha. Turtle Breath Datha, the ultimate in breath holding. As long as you practice it, you will not suffer from discomfort caused by the lack of oxygen supply for a long time. HMPH, if you still have some conscience, let's draw a lottery. After the words fell, the unchanging turntable of Eternal appeared in Lei Luo's mind again. S-Class Skill, Armament Hockey. S-Level Skills, Turtle Qigong. S-Class Props, Water Silver Ribbon. SS Level Reward, Promise Juggernaut. S-Class Weapon, Magic Sword, Apophis. S-Level Skills, Kimin After the Wind. Armament Hockey, exclusive to Pirate World, no need to explain too much. Turtle Qigong is a luck stunt developed by the world's first martial artist, Turtle Immortal, in the Dragon Ball world. The power will vary according to the strength of the user, but there is no doubt that the destructive power of this move is absolutely calculable. Top is top. Water Silver Ribbon, a piece of equipment from League of Legends, is used to release all controls while increasing movement speed. After system enhancement, the Water Silver Ribbon will restore 1/5 of its original function to the user. One's stamina can trigger up to 3 times a day. Wuji Sword Saint, whose real name is Master Yi, is the highlight of this lottery draw. He is a swordsman from Ionia. However, Master Yi advocates peace, and he will never use violence until it is necessary. Demon Sword, Apophis, an artifact from the dungeon world, has the most stylish giant sword shape, at the cost of slowing down the speed of attack, in exchange for unparalleled destructive power. The Kimin of the Queen of the Wind, one of the 8 magical skills from the Immortals. Kimin has skills, and the Queen of Wind is king. Among the thousands of worlds, there are as many Taoist techniques as the stars at night. Among them, Kimin Dunjia, Antishui 8 trigrams and Tai Xuanshu are the most famous, and the Kimin behind the wind is the ultimate heaven-reaching technique based on the 3. Seeing the 6 prizes in this lottery draw, Lei Luo felt a lot of joy. Not to mention the existence of the SS level reward Wuji Juggernaut, as long as there are no such tricks as Toya Lake and Pokeball this time, it is already the most European emperor of Lei Luo. Hurry up, draw the lottery. Lei Luo, who couldn't wait, felt like the system had given an order for the first time. The turntable was spinning rapidly, and Lei Luo's heart kept beating. If he can draw the promised Juggernaut, then even if his next few draws belong to the ranks of super non-chiefs, he will never have any complaints. Ding! Congratulations to the host for winning the S-level award. No, it should be the SS level award, promised Sword Saint. I'll go to your second uncle, his uncle, are you kidding me? At this time, Lei Luo's face was covered with black lines. Just now, the pointer clearly stopped on the water silver ribbon, but he silently set the flag in Lei Luo's heart. Superior. Other people's systems are all invincible and invincible. How can they be so stupid? Just as Lei Luo continued to sincerely greet the ancestors of the founders of the system in his heart, a deep male voice sounded in his ear. My sword is your sword. Naval Headquarters. The furious Akainu pinched a Navy soldier's throat and held him in the air, the thick smoke with high temperature in his mouth, just one mouthful, burned the Navy's face into blisters one after another. Say, who issued the order to hunt down the Dark World? Lei Luo's departure. Apart from Akainu, Tina, and Leiju, no fourth person knew about Akatsuki. Just now, when Karp was going to ask Lei Luo some questions about the 7th gate of the 8 inner gates, he was mistaken for a sneak attack by Lei Luo. With Garp's skill, he could easily counteract this man, but when the Navy investigated his information, it was discovered that he was a newcomer who had just registered for the military. Just this, the most terrifying pursuit order in the world instantly appeared in the minds of the Navy's top management. Cough. The Navy was breathing hard, but Akainu's extremely powerful fingers were incomparably precise, and the force happened to be grasped at a scale that was not enough to kill, but it was difficult to breathe. However, what Akainu did not expect was that the Navy chose to bite his tongue and commit suicide at the last minute. Mighty and unyielding, then you will be reduced to ashes in the last pain. Akainu sneered, the palm that squeezed the assassin's throat slowly turned into boiling lava, and instantly turned a living person into a pile of black ashes. Anyone who has been in contact with the Dark World understands that anyone who dares to reveal the identity of their employer or assassin will be regarded as a public enemy, which is equivalent to the highest level pursuit order. Rather than knowing when and how to be killed, the overall fear, it is better to choose the joy of self-destruction now. I have issued a hunting order for the Admiral, and I have enough ability to pay for it. It seems that Lei Luo has provoked a guy with a lot of background this time. These bastards in the sea are really scary. Kizaru shrank his neck and looked very scared, but there was never a hint of timidity in the iconic wretched smile on his face. Didn't that kid just come back from Beihai? Someone, call Lieutenant General Tina and Lieutenant General Leiju. The green cow smiled slightly, and an uncontrollable fighting intent emerged from the depths of his eyes. Chapter 298_Analu appears. In the vast universe, there are countless secrets and billions of planets. Whenever a star burns, there is a galaxy formed by it as the core, such as the well-known solar system. In the solar system, there are 8 planets, the bluest of the 8 is surrounded by a satellite, and this is the moon. Looking around, there is no life on the moon, and there seems to be a faint flash of thunder on the pitted surface, and a golden light descends. Master, is there really any human existence here? Master Yi, who also learned the turtle breath Dafa, asked Lei Luo, who was also beside him with a confused face. According to the normal biological setting, there is only an endless vacuum on the moon, and even if a weak human stops here for a second, it will become an eternal corpse due to ultra-low temperature and breathing. However, Lei Luo's target, Anilu, is indeed ruling this satellite. Speaking of evidence, the constantly alternating thunder is the best proof. What's more, in the original world, there used to be a special race on the moon. Sure enough, the world of comics cannot be viewed with common sense. Lei Luo quietly cancelled the turtle breath Dafa, but found that he was not affected by the lack of oxygen supply when he was on the moon. It was at this moment that Lei Luo realized one thing, that he seemed to be slaughtered by the old fox of the system. Manga. What is a manga? This is the vocabulary of my hometown, and I just said it casually, you don't have to take it seriously. On the surface, Lei Luo, who was explaining to Master Yi, swept the surface of the moon quickly, and the most dazzling place of lightning must be the location of Anilu. However, Lei Luo and the two who have turned the whole planet around, let alone human beings, haven't even seen anything that has the breath of life. This makes Lei Luo very different. Could it be that Anilu is dead? However, according to the setting of Pirate World, the thunder fruit did not reappear on the sea, which means that the previous capable person is still alive, and even if he is only lingering, he still has not died. Strange, why is that? Lei Luo's expression became more and more puzzled. Is Anilu dead or alive? If he is dead, where is his body, and if he is alive, why is there any trace? What is going on in all this? Master, be careful. At this moment, Master Yi jumped up, his figure turned into a green light, and he kept jumping into space, and the long sword in his hand flashed a strange light. In silence, a small star fragment turned into rubble and fell on the surface of the moon, making its already uneven surface even more pitted. No sound can be transmitted in a vacuum. Lei Luo, who understood why there was no sound from the explosion of the star fragments, was even more puzzled. According to the laws of physics, he and Master Yi should not be able to hear each other's speech, but why couldn't hear the roaring thunder? The sound and the explosion of the stars, the dialogue between the two has no effect. Because the Wuji juggernaut belongs to the rewards issued by this system, it is connected with your heart. The two of you just talked on the surface without sound, but there is an invisible bridge between your spirits. After a systematic explanation, Lei Luo reluctantly accepted this world setting that is closely related to real life, but slightly different. Suddenly, in the depths of the lunar land, a bearded cat was covered with stains all over, and a scrawny man came out of it, and there was a trace of joy in those extremely contemptuous eyes. Finally, after so many years, I finally saw a living human again. Although Lei Luo recognized at a glance that the person who appeared in front of him was the Anilu he was looking for, he was now faced with a bigger problem, which was how he should talk to Anilu. System, are you there? There is no way for the system to solve the problems encountered by the host, but there is one person in this world who can temporarily change the air environment of a planet. Who? Gurges. Suddenly realized, Lei Luo slapped his forehead sharply. Yes, Gurges can use the ability of the air fruit to mobilize a part of the air and the moon from the earth, and he only needs to create a closed space with the 6-pole light prison. In darkness, the thing that exists the most is the light that is swallowed up in an instant. As soon as he said it, Lei Luo set out a shadow clone on the spot, traveled in the void with the speed of light, and hurried to the naval headquarters to look for Gurges. Master, what you just did seems to annoy the person above. The voice of Master Yi of Wuji Jiansheng resounded in Lei Luo's mind. When he looked up, he only saw Anilu in the air. At this moment, his hands were replaced by lightning. In an instant, two dazzling thunderbolts rushed towards Lei Luo and Master Yi respectively. Without the air barrier, the speed of these two thunderbolts was at least multiplied several times. Plateau bloodline is on. Instant light. Two figures, one green and one gold, moved rapidly on the surface of the moon, but the two thunders seemed to be of extraordinary intelligence, following the two of them, either curved or straight, without the slightest slack. This bastard has been alone for a long time. Has his brain gone wrong? Lei Luo, who didn't intend to force the shot, complained in his heart. He really couldn't understand why Annalou suddenly burst out and launched an attack. But at this time, the smell of blood gradually spread. Lei Luo turned his head to look, but what he saw was that due to the difference in speed, Master Yi was mobilized by Annalou to the thunder in the distance, forming a flanking trend, even though Master Yi had already reacted very quickly and entered into meditation in the state. There is still a wound on the shoulder, and the blood is in the form of beads, one by one suspended in the air. Although Master Yi has always advocated the justice of freedom and peace, and believes that violence is not the solution to troubles, when the opposite party has the will to kill, he will definitely resist at the first time, just like his line, leading to the key to immortality is immortality. I saw that Master Yi's left hand touched the end of the sword from the hilt, and the light blue light on the long sword flickered. Even Lei Luo's heart trembled because of this. The most special true damage in League of Legends seems to have a similar effect to Conqueror's Haki, that is, it has the ability to damage the entity of the natural devil fruit ability. Yi, this battle is up to you. Lei Luo casually squeezed the thunder that was chasing him to nothing, and stood quietly in place. Chapter 299-Juggernaut vs. Thor. The way of promise will teach this person a painful lesson. Master Yi said calmly, no matter how powerful the enemy is, he will always maintain a calm state of mind. Lei Luo is not too worried about this battle. The real damage brought by the way of promise can hurt the body of the natural ability person, and the 7-degree compound eyes on Master Yi's head can provide him with a broad perspective. Even if Annalou has the blessing of the heart network, the real gap between them is not that huge. Just gently swinging the sword slash that exudes a light green light seems to turn 1 into 1,000, and the next moment, the 1,000 slashes become 1, and between every movement and a thought, the subtle sword energy spreads, causing the space to vibrate at the same time. And did not shatter it. It's a good move to kill 1,000 machines. Seeing this scene, Lei Luo couldn't help but be amazed. 1 and 1,000 represent the very small and the great respectively. The vertical and horizontal sword chi has the power to crush space, but it coexists with it. While this move is extremely powerful, it does not cause a devastating blow to foreign objects. The way of promise is really an ultimate avenue that accommodates all the rivers and advocates peace. Feeling the terrifying pressure contained in the slash that flew towards him, Annalou's face sank, and he raised his right arm and banged on the drum on his right shoulder, and the endless thunder was released from his body. At the same time, Annalou's left hand was not idle either. He beat the taiko drum on his left shoulder with a slow but rhythmic regularity, constantly gathering the unbridled thunder on the surface of the moon. With the corners of Annalou's mouth slightly raised, the shocking Lei Wei was out of the world. A phoenix-shaped thunderbird and a wolf-shaped beast came up and down, and they all slammed into the slash. There was no deafening loud noise, only brilliant blue and blue colors spread in the vacuum, and the aura full of destruction continued to spread across the universe, and even the moon vibrated in position. That's not right. I remember Annalou's 2 tricks only need to beat the taiko drum alone. Why does he need to beat both at the same time? Lei Luo, who noticed something was wrong, suddenly sounded something and wanted to remind Master Yi, but it was already too late. A crystal dragon made of thunder appeared from the blind spot of Master Yi's vision. Zhang Qiba's claws shredded the previous blue-blue mixed color and whistled to kill Master Yi. This was Annalou's unique trick 6000 10,000 volt Trairin. Of course, the whistling sound was just what Lei Luo imagined. Using 230 million volt tricks as a feint, and then paving the way for the follow-up ultimate move, Annalou's combat skills and strategic deployment are very clever. It is not like being defeated by a kid who just went to sea, and finally fled in embarrassment. To the presence of the moon. Fruit ability restraint. Smile. The thermal energy from this level of lightning is enough to ignite the rubber, and in the end not even slag is left. Strength gap. Analu's physical skills are indeed very poor, but with observation haki, heart net, his development of fruit ability is even better than that of Kizaru, and coupled with such an excellent combat mind, it is simply impossible. Shouldn't be beaten by a hairy boy. As for why Analu still lost to Luffy in the original book, the answer is only the 3 words, plot kill. Sure enough, it's not worth my heart's desire. Analu's combat power is infinitely close to the level of a general. It was just a fight, and Lei Luo already had a rough judgment on Analu's strength. Such a talented person, if he learns the 8 inner gates and improves his domineering, his future strength will definitely not be weaker than Whitebeard. A Mooney mover Moko coaxes. A sudden chanting sound of scriptures caught Lei Luo's attention. At this time, Master Yi floated the long sword horizontally in front of him, the other hand with 2 fingers was erected in front of his mouth, and his whole body was covered by a dark green light. Thunder Dragon arrived as promised, but at the moment when it touched Master Yi's body, Master Yi cancelled the meditation state in an instant. The instant W with the highest damage reduction in the game. Good guy, the game characters will have high-end operations. In the real world, Lei Luo, who is an avid fan of League of Legends, although his favorite game character is not the Juggernaut, he is familiar with any high-end operations of this simple and mindless hero. However, what happened next made Lei Luo very strange, because Master Yi, who avoided the first impact damage, did not choose to take advantage of this gap to further evade the subsequent damage, but launched an attack on Lei Luo. Sword move Alpha Raid. The green light flashed 3 times in succession, leaving a cyan trail on the Thunder Dragon's body. When the 4th and last flash of the green light went out, Master Yi, who was holding the Qingfang, and Annie appeared. In front of the road, a sword followed. Will the landing point of the Alpha Raid move in front of the final target? Now, Ben is also worried that Lei Luo, who has been weakened due to the different fighting styles in the world of pirates, will be overjoyed. Sure enough, no matter how the fighting style changes, the fighting consciousness and on-the-spot reaction honed in the battle of life and death will never dissipate. Analu, who had never seen Wuji Kendo, was a little confused. He didn't know how the green-clothed opponent in front of him ignored his Thunder Dragon and appeared in front of him, but he was sure of one thing. That is, by elementalization alone, it is impossible to stop the sword that is about to pierce into his chest. Electric light. Analu did not dare to relax at all, and directly collided all the thunders in his body together. The light generated by the collision actually managed to temporarily transform his thunder attribute into a more ethereal light attribute. At the same time, there are countless small the razor was attached to Master Yi's body. This electric light move is the strongest defense when Analu is close to him, and in the defense, there is also a counterattack, which is enough to paralyze all the opponent's meridians in a short period of time. The 2 future generals seem to be waving to me. General Evil Eye, what are you talking about? In the high sky of the earth, Lei Luo, who had just described the operation formula of Turtle's Breath Dafa to Gedges, suddenly showed a touch of ecstasy on his face. It's nothing, you're ready, I'm going to speed up next time. Lei Luo, who had fooled Gedger for a while, was still unable to calm the excitement in his heart. Whether it is the Promised Sword Saint or Analu, they have extremely strong combat power and infinite potential. As long as they are cultivated and an independent navy capable of fighting against the 4 emperors is established, it is just around the corner. Chapter 300 God's Form. I have 3. What kind of swordsmanship is this? With the help of the miraculous effect of the electric light, Analu, who had regulated the damage of this blow, was shocked, because just as he was about to counterattack, he found that the sword move that should have been stagnant actually had a second sword. When he started, the second sword was definitely not controlled by Wuji Juggernaut himself, but more like an attack prepared in advance. Juggernaut's passive. No, from the time of the shot to the present, the Juggernaut has not swung the sword enough times. Does the passive refresh automatically after W? Lei Luo, who was watching the game, gave the correct answer. Suddenly, a thunderstorm descended out of nowhere, hitting Sword Saint Tianlinggai directly. In the face of such a sudden situation, Master Yi, relying on his final control over his body, forcibly moved with the explosive force generated by the collision of thunder in Enelu's body, and opened a sufficient safety distance from the injured Enelu. Blood like thunder slush continuously flowed out of Enelu's chest and mouth, and his heartbeat, which was originally strong and powerful, also became fragile at this time, and finally almost came to a complete stop. On the surface of the moon, Master Yi, who was completely paralyzed by the little white thunder snake, had a nervous signal on his face, because he seemed to feel that something in his body was about to explode. As expected by the Juggernaut, after completing their mission, those little white thunder snakes collided head-to-head, turning into dazzling thunder, defeating Master Yi, who was unable to defend from the inside out. Ah Mew, Mani, Foko. The promised Sword Saint kept his mouth closed, but he didn't make any sound. The only movement was probably the blood of the gorilla Yuhi that kept pouring out of his throat. Victory. Feeling that the wounds in Wuji Jiansheng's body began to heal slowly, and a trace of vitality reappeared, Lei Luo couldn't help wrinkling. He didn't expect that this supposedly huge confrontation would end so quickly, and even the final result turned out to be one handicap and one death. Keep meditating and I'll heal you. Looking at Ani Lu, who was suspended in midair in a free state, Lei Luo sighed helplessly, walked to the side of Wuji Swordsman, and activated the light therapy technique. Lord, little. Just when Lei Luo's palm with warm golden light was about to touch Master Yi resisted the blood gushing out of his throat and squeezed two vague tones from his mouth. At that moment, Lei Luo's observation haki suddenly activated, and his body subconsciously condensed a golden light spell on his body. Just now, a thunder like the judgment of the gods crashed down. Ellen is back to life. Looking back, Lei Luo clearly saw through the wound in front of Anelu's chest that the heart that should have stopped beating was now surrounded by thunder and lightning, faintly returning to the previous rhythm. Electrotherapy. Anelu can use electrotherapy to make his heart stop beating and revive it again. Next, before Anelu could continue to take action, Lei Luo's body was full of golden light, and a huge hexagram that covered a radius of several hundred meters appeared. The next moment, in the top of the three people's heads, one of the two figures that suddenly appeared shattered, and it also turned into a hexagram that was exactly the same as the surface of the moon. One high and one low, call each other accordingly. 6 paths shot out from the sharp corners of the double array, blocking the space. At the same time, a very familiar feeling flooded into his heart, completely dispelling the panic that appeared in Enelu's heart because of Lei Luo's power. Replace. It's air, it's air. Anelu greedily gulps, with a look of extreme shock, as if he was afraid that everything that happened in front of him would be a big dream. Wait, was that my voice just now? Suddenly, realizing the slightly dry voice beside his ears, Anelu began to tremble, and tears rolled down his eyes. Air, sound, after so long, I finally saw the things that I used to have at my fingertips, and now I am looking forward to it day and night. Anelu, are you willing to follow me back? At this moment, Lei Luo, who had roughly treated Master Yi's internal injuries, suddenly made a sound in his mouth. Go back. Hearing this word, Anelu's mood obviously fluctuated greatly. Sky Island, the Kingdom of God, Angel Island. These familiar names mixed with unfamiliar names appeared in Anelu's mind. Going back, Anelu was trying every way to go back day and night, but this infinite land that he dreamed of in his heart was a hell at all, constantly weakening the power that was eating away at him. When he found the clue, he has lost the ability to return to his hometown. I will take you back, and you will be my master and continue to live as a navy. Lei Luo's voice sounded again. Navy, pirates. Straw Hat Luffy. In a trance, the beauty in Anelu's mind was shattered by a young smiling face that suddenly appeared. If it wasn't for the appearance of this bastard, I would still be the god of the empty island, and I would never have gone to this ghost place, tortured by hunger, loneliness, and emptiness day and night. You think about it, at least I won't leave until the air here runs out. Lei Luo, who was confused by the various problems of Gedgers, didn't even want to say a word, and directly threw the problem to Anilu. Going back is his own extravagant hope, but he can be a human being as the master. How can this be a dignity that a god can abandon? Want me to recognize you as the master? It's very simple, to prove that you are stronger than me. 200 million volts, the god of thunder, came into the world. Boom boom boom. The violent power continued to explode in his ears, accompanied by endless thunder. At this time, Enilu seemed to have transformed into a thunder giant, closing his eyes and enjoying the long-lost sound. Looking at Enilu's strongest form, Lei Luo just shook his head and grinned, and suddenly knocked Gedges unconscious with his backhand. In your form, I have 3. In the next moment, Lei Luo's figure is divided into 3 parts. Although the appearance is the same, there are great differences in the subtleties of the facial features. On the left, golden eye shadow and red Yuhi's robes are added. In the middle, in appearance, a pair of bloody eyes of Yuhi containing 9 pitch black tomo were added. On the right, the skin on the whole body is covered with gold. Wizard Godzilla Sage Mode is huge, open. Full body Susanoo, turn on. The ultimate god and Buddha form, open. At that moment, Sandao glanced at it, and could not see the huge figures with heads appearing on the faces of Anilu and Wuji Jiansheng. The violent energy contained in the 3 bodies reminded them all the time, the difference between ants and beasts. The gap is so huge.